Part 27. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 261. Yao Yingsong really felt that his professional ability was crushed by Li Yuan. So after sending out the report, he was thinking about how Li Yuan did it. Taking all the data together, he still couldn't figure it out. Li Yuan told him two things in total. The first thing was to ask myself to negotiate for us $26 billion, but I failed to do so. The second time I gave myself a contact information and said I could sell the stock at 40%. The next step was to sign a contract with Pioneer Capital at a 63% discount. He only answered the phone for a day, giving him almost no chance to bid. Is that 40% off just a cover? The purpose is to force others to offer a higher price. Then the two parties entered the bidding process. It's not a bidding process. I can't imagine how it could suddenly rise so much. He only thought of this possibility. It means pretending to sell it to one person at a 40% discount. The other person also wants it, so they start to increase the price. Both parties start bidding, and the one with the highest price wins in the end. When I was puzzled, my phone rang. He quickly answered the call and said, "Leader." There seemed to be something wrong with the tone on the other end of the phone, and he asked, "Xiao Yao, which stocks of Qingtian Capital were sold today?" "Yes, sold at 30% off the closing price." "You negotiated it?" "Not bad." No, the leader misunderstood. It was Mr. Li who negotiated it himself. I just answered a few calls and was responsible for the final contract. Haha, don't be modest. There is nothing to be modest about. Your ability is obvious to all of us. Yao Yingsong said with a bitter face, "Boss, you have really misunderstood. So far, I don't know how Mr. Li negotiated it. I would like to find an opportunity to ask Mr. Li for advice." It was impossible for him to call Li Yuan boss in front of the leader, lest the leader become jealous. Anyway, Li Yuan is not here now. Then, you have worked hard. Didn't you take a break during the day? Go and rest for a while. By the way, talk to Li Yuan and see if you can ask for leave. Thank you for your concern, leader. I have already told Mr. Li to come back to the company after 4 in the morning. That's good, I won't disturb your rest. On the National Fund side, several leaders looked at each other. I just turned on the hands-free. Li Yuan did the whole process himself. Then what is the meaning of our existence? They originally thought that they had Yao Yingsong's contribution, and since they were Yao Yingsong's leaders, they could naturally describe this contribution as the result of a large national fund. After all, that's over $10 billion. Calculating this, it already exceeds 100 billion Huaxia coins. Before, I was preparing to lose money every day, but suddenly one day I found that not only did I not need to lose money, I also made a lot of money. That kind of surprise was even more exciting than when I had my first child. How about giving Li Yuan a call? Okay, but don't let others know about this first, lest they are too afraid of being robbed. Last time, the $20 billion was just gone. If Tang Jianjun had known that he had earned more than $10 billion in less than 3 months, he would definitely have done something dirty. As soon as they finished speaking, the office door was opened. A smiling little old man came over. "Congratulations, I heard you got rich." Everyone. Tang Jianjun didn't come, so Tang Jianjun's leader was provoked. Even Tang Jianjun can suppress them, let alone this one. Their money will have to be handed over sooner or later. But handing it over to your own department's account is completely different from being fined and confiscated. The former counts as performance, and the latter counts as fault. Although there is no punishment, and there is merit. But it has a bad reputation. "Big leader, why are you here?" The little old man said, It's okay. I'm about to get off work and I saw you guys were still busy here, so I came over to check on the situation. There's no point in hiding a good thing like getting rich. Let me see how much money I made. Everyone. They had just seen the report, and the leader came over. What did it mean? It shows that people have been paying attention to this matter. Maybe they even sent someone to keep an eye on Li Yuan's account and knew the news earlier than they did. Leader, it's not liquidation yet. All we see are floating profits. We won't know the specific income until the day of liquidation. The little old man immediately said seriously, look at you guys, how can you raise cubs with so much money? Making money is a good thing. I can help you with a few more projects. Leader, this money will be used for pensions. It's too early for a pension. Besides, you can't use it now. I've helped you with several shipbuilding projects. The profits will definitely be very considerable in the future. Shipbuilding. Is that a ship? What kind of income are we talking about? There is no income at all. I don't know how much we will have to rebate every year. If you always want to steal money, just say so. Boss, the money really hasn't arrived. Li Yuan said that he will be liquidated in 1 month, and then he will take a long break. After all, he will have a child soon, and he definitely wants to return to his family. In the next half year, maybe there is no profit, so we dare not invest in other projects. Heh, he. Everyone looked at each other with only one thought in their eyes. If you don't vote, you really can't beat the headwind game. The news that Zhang Yuling was going to have a baby spread in several circles. Of course, there must be people who know about Zhou Ranran's birth and the relationship between Li Yuan and Zhou Ranran. But after all, Zhou Ranran has no status, and they will not give special gifts to Zhou Ranran. But Zhang Yuling is different. Her relationship with Li Yuan has been made clear. No matter when she gets married, living with Li Yuan now represents Li Yuan. Anyone who understands Li Yuan's value is actively preparing. Even Zhang Yuanqiao came to sit here for several hours every day during this period. Li Yuan's biological clock was out of whack, so he didn't go home. Yao Yingsong held it in for 2 days and finally called Chen Ji. Chen Ji was a few months older than him, so he said, Sister Chen, there's something I can't figure out. Please answer it for me. Just treat it like I'm begging you. What's up? How on earth did my boss make Pioneer Capital willing to pay so much money? It's completely beyond my understanding. Even if it's a bidding, no one is taken advantage of. Chen Ji on the other side of the phone laughed and said, bidding is just a low-end method, but what he uses can be regarded as a bidding model, but he counts the open bidding as a secret bidding. Secret bidding? Isn't this more difficult? At auctions, there are open biddings, so the price can go up. Isn't secret bidding the same as bidding? Even if they can give a premium, they can't give so much all at once. It just seems like a lot to you, but it's actually not much. Sister, what do you mean? Yao Yingsong was completely stunned. Chen Ji said, let me give you an example. If you sell something in China, and you want to sell it for $100, others will also like it. When the transaction is completed, others will give you $100. Yao Yingsong. Chen Ji added, Li Yuan took the lead in talking to Pioneer Capital and agreed on a calculation method with them, which subtly made Pioneer Capital believe that his calculation method is universal. For example, the 40% discount Li Yuan said is actually not based on the calculation method. It is calculated based on the closing price, but a floating price, that is, when a certain price rises by 60%, it is the closing price. Yao Yingsong. He took out his calculator and started calculating. After a moment, he said, actually, the boss's deal is 40% off. Well, 41% off, Pioneer Capital added a little bit at the end. Yao Yingsong, The boss asked me to contact another client and told them that they were willing to sell at a 40% discount. In fact, it made the other party think that the 40% discount was based on the closing price. But Pioneer Capital knew this news and substituted the boss's own unique algorithm. Well, it's the difference between the algorithms, so it comes with an extra coefficient. You think the transaction price is high, but Pioneer Capital has got the news that others are willing to buy at a 40% discount, and they just added a little bit to the price. It's just money. Looking at it this way, is it still high? High? It's just the boss's algorithm that's high. Yao Yingsong finally figured it out at this time. It's not that Li Yuan's negotiation skills are so clever, it's just yin. This algorithm can be applied in many scenarios. When Yao Yingsong heard this, he was stunned for a moment and said, "Sister Chen has a thorough understanding. Thanks to Sister Chen for clearing up the confusion, I figured it out." Chen Ji's words still hint at his life. You should add some coefficients to your life, so that sometimes even if it seems like you are losing money on the surface, you are actually making money. It looks like a small profit on the surface, but actually it makes a lot of money. His life has not yet begun in earnest, and he will inevitably face more challenges in the future. Looking back on what happened in the past few months, it was not the first time that Li Yuan used this trick. His ability is not even comparable to Ye Sheng, but what about now? Everyone thinks he is stronger than Ye Sheng. It's because Li Yuan's coefficient has been added to him, and this coefficient will change according to Li Yuan's strength. The stronger Li Yuan is, the greater this coefficient will be. If a piece of glass is worn on the hand of an ordinary person, others will not think it is a diamond. But if it is worn on Li Yuan's hand, no matter how fake it is, others will think it is a gem. Li Yuan came back from the company. Seeing Chen Ji's relaxed expression, she asked, "Why are you so happy today?" "It's rare. Yao Yingsong just called me and asked how you negotiated the price, so I chatted with him for a while. This guy is quite interesting, he doesn't hide it, and he has a strong desire to learn." "Well, it's really great." Li Yuan also admitted that although Yao Yingsong's abilities were average, his advantages were as obvious as his disadvantages. But he maintains the ability to learn at a high speed, which even he is ashamed of. His learning ability is also improving now, but he is still far behind Yao Yingsong. After all, when he reaches his current status, most people will gradually lose their ability to learn. This is why there is a generational gap among people, and why people think that some very powerful people will behave in a very stupid way. They have stopped learning and their thinking is still stuck on 10 or even 20 years ago. For example, when a scandal breaks out, their first thought is not to explain the matter, but to cover it up. They are completely unaware of the changes in the outside world and the role of public opinion. It wasn't until things escalated that there was no way to end it that I realized I had done something wrong. But at that time, no one believed what they said. The most typical one is some official refutation of rumors. Then you go take a shower first. The food will be ready soon. Good. Li Yuan went to take a bath, which only took about 10 minutes. Chen Ji started to serve Li Yuan food. Li Yuan looked at the table of food and asked, "Why is it so rich today? Didn't you say before that it's not good to eat too much before going to bed?" Chen Ji said, "It's Saturday, and I don't have to go to work, so I can go to bed later. But I don't really want to exercise. My brain is a bit underused. I want to lie down when I'm full." "Well, it doesn't matter, just sleep a little later." "Good." Chen Ji sat opposite Li Yuan, with her hands on her chin, watching Li Yuan eat. Li Yuan asked, "Sister Chen, don't you want to eat some?" "I don't want to eat it yet, because I'm afraid I'll lose my appetite later." "Huh? Sister Chen, are you going to have a big meal after I go to bed?" "Chen Ji, do you have no idea whether to have a big meal or not?" She had no money at all, and Li Yuan hadn't given her any living expenses for so long. Just take it as such. After all, women eat differently from men, and they also have to take care of some beauty and beauty care. You don't like to eat either. After Li Yuan finished eating, he sat on the sofa and took out his mobile phone. He has already taken screenshots of the earnings. After all, after being scolded for so long, it's time to go out and fight in the lane. He can't let his fans be wronged. He sent out the screenshot, and then added the copy, in 3 months, from us $1.5 billion to us $18.2 billion, the chips were cleared, and it was a holiday. It actually cost $3 billion, and he didn't take a day off. But you still need smoke bombs. He must win the title of stock god and pick an industrial pearl for China, so that in the future the colonists will not find a target and use this as an excuse. Before the fans could reply, Chen Ji came over with a towel, sat next to him, and said, "I'll wipe your hair. It's almost done." Li Yuan usually likes to turn on the warm air after washing his hair. By the time he finishes taking a shower, his hair is almost dry. Very time-saving. Mainly because I'm too lazy to dry my hair. The disadvantage is that the hairstyle is a bit fried. But Chen Ji finally came to the back of the sofa and took off her shoes. "Sister Chen, your hair is really almost dry, and the towel is of no use." "Well, I know, but I have to give you something to wipe," Chen Ji said softly. She stretched out her hand and wiped it with gentle movements for Li Yuan. Unknowingly, the whole person got closer. Li Yuan's handsome face looked particularly charming. "There's nothing wet either." "There's more." "What else?" They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it." Author, Lao He. Chapter 262. Before I knew it, it was Sunday. Li Yuan didn't go out in the past 2 days. After all, his parents were looking for him. Ever since they learned about Zhou Ranran, their mentality had problems. Li Wan he didn't want to go back at all. He made excuses to go out for a walk when he had nothing to do. In fact, he just went to the hospital to see the child. He couldn't show it yet, so he could only continue to make excuses, saying that he was chatting with Zhou Yifang. That was his grandson after all, and it was impossible to say he didn't care. Zhou Wan can only take care of Zhang Yuling at home most of the time. She has a crush on both sides, so she has no choice. Of course, the most important thing is to call him back. The old couple guessed that they had already discussed some solutions, but they never saw him. When he woke up in the afternoon, before he was ready to eat, Chen Ji said, "There will be a guest at home later, and it is inconvenient for me to stay here, so the meal will be late." Li Yuan, who had just woken up, was not hungry, but he was curious. Who was coming, and Chen Ji had to avoid it. "Isn't she from Tang Jianjun's side?" "Who's coming?" "You'll know later. It'll take 10 minutes at most. I'll make you a cup of soy milk first. I'll definitely be back in an hour or two." Li Yuan frowned and hummed softly. The identity of the visitor must be extremely special, and Chen Ji cannot stay here. Maybe even taller than Tang Jianjun. A few minutes later, Chen Ji answered the phone, delivered the soy milk to Li Yuan, and left. A few minutes later, the door was opened, and Li Yuan saw a little old man and 2 people walking in from the outside. However, the 2 parties did not say hello immediately. The people brought by the other party checked the entire room and used some instruments. The inspection lasted for 10 minutes. It wasn't until Li Yuan finished drinking the soy milk and the 2 people responsible for the inspection left that the 2 parties officially spoke for the first time. Li Yuan said, "I really never thought that you would come here in person. I've always wanted to meet you, but it's not easy to find an opportunity. I just happened to be passing by Zhangzhou this time, and the timing was coincidental." Li Yuan said softly, whoever makes the rules, it is just a coincidence for whom. I am young and energetic. If I say something unpleasant, don't take it to heart. Sooner or later, I will be beaten up by the society, and I will slowly die mature. Although it was a bit unexpected today, it was still reasonable. There are not many people that Chen Ji can avoid, and you can guess it if you think about it carefully. The little old man in front of him is the real god of wealth. The money handled every year starts from more than 10 trillion yuan. After sitting down, the god of wealth said with a smile, "Look what you said, I'm not here to show off to you, what's wrong with you? But what you just said is very good, the one who makes the rules you can only talk about coincidences. If you can't make rules, you can only accept them. I think you are the kind of person who can make rules." Li Yuan still doesn't understand what the god of wealth wants from him. He is not a member of the system, and with the stains on his body, he will never be able to enter it in this life. You overestimate me too much. I can only play in individual stocks and compete with so many people. I am not worthy of the real gaming field. To put it bluntly, to play stocks, you only need to figure out what others are thinking about in the next second, but in the game of great powers, you often need to think about what others will do in the next few years. It is basically impossible to guess it completely correctly, but even if you can only guess a general direction, it will be very scary. After all, the game between great powers is not about gains and losses of tens of billions of dollars, but more that cannot be measured in terms of money. The god of wealth smiled and said, "Actually, it's nothing. They're all the same. What's the saying? If you don't seize the day, how can you keep track of the years?" Li Yuan, is there such a sentence? Haha, that's pretty much what it means. If you are making waves in the US stock market, you must have a good understanding of their system. Can I ask your opinion on the US stock market? Li Yuan, the US stock market is nothing special. It is just a qualified reservoir. This is also its biggest advantage. After all, the so-called financial attribute is to find ways to reasonably increase the leverage of funds. The god of wealth nodded and continued to ask, "So are you optimistic about US stocks?" "There's nothing I'm optimistic about or not. The market conditions have nothing to do with me." "Huh? If the market is better, won't you earn more? If the market goes bad, you will earn more. Generally speaking, I am most worried about whether the market is good or bad, and similarly, my opponents are also." The god of wealth was stunned for a moment. Li Yuan's words were obvious. That is, the US stock market will not stay like this forever. It will either fall or rise. The market is not falling now, it is just a normal retracement. If the US stock market wants to fall by 30 or 40 points, unless there is a systemic risk, even if interest rates are raised, it will only hover around 10 or 20 points at most. 15 years ago, US stocks were always in a rate hike cycle. There were retracements and gaps were filled, but overall there was no downward trend. Except for that one time in 2008. Li Yuan probably means that US stocks will rise. And what is the logic of the rise? I can't think of anything else besides draining the US dollar. Global deflation has forced the United States to launch a trade war in order to bring manufacturing back home. After raising interest rates in the past few years, the US dollar has been falling in the past 2 years, but liquidity has never increased. They are eager to make the US dollar flow, and manufacturing is the biggest direction. The domestic manufacturing industry in the beautiful country has almost disappeared in recent years. At first, they only wanted to bring low-end manufacturing to developing countries, but as they continued to do so, they discovered that finance brings in money faster and the service industry is better. Then the mid to high-end manufacturing industry also began to slowly lose. In recent years, their high-end manufacturing industry has been supported by only a few dozen companies. Even so, Those high-end manufacturing industries are still being impacted by China's manufacturing industry. And their two experienced babies, Taobeiji and Nanbang, have been unable to inject fresh blood into them due to the decline in their share of mid to high-end manufacturing industries. So their entity list came out. A-share bears didn't even look at it, and the turnover of the two cities once fell to 400 billion. It's already May and there's no sign of improvement. The god of wealth sighed and said, if the US dollar weakens, it will be difficult for global assets, we will either follow suit, or we will have to suffer the pain caused by currency appreciation. Li Yuan did not express an opinion. This matter had nothing to do with him. But the god of wealth is right. The drain on the US dollar is not good news for China. Follow and release the water? If there is a lack of reservoirs in the country, where does the released water go? Continue infrastructure construction? Real estate? Housing prices can no longer rise. If they continue to rise, once the bubble is burst, systemic risks will instantly arise. Even now, we have reached a very subtle point, and many first-tier cities have begun to restrict purchases and sales. Currency appreciation? That's even more uncomfortable. China is the world's largest manufacturing country. If the currency appreciates, it will be a black swan event for product exports. At that time, exports will shrink and the national economy may become depressed. A lesson learned from the past is what happened 30 years ago, the Plaza Accord. The content of the Plaza Accord was to require the appreciation of their currencies. At the beginning, the citizens of Tiaobenji felt that this was good news, and the money in their hands became more valuable. But within a few months, they found that their products could not be sold. After the currency appreciates, others who want to import their products have to pay a greater cost, which is equivalent to importing things becoming more expensive. If it is too expensive, it will lose the market. After losing the market, the company will naturally lay off employees, which will be compounded by their original real estate bubble. After the layoffs, the real estate bubble will eventually burst, triggering systemic financial risks. To put it bluntly, they are the experience babies of the beautiful country, and the beautiful country has many ways to harvest them. The god of wealth was a little disappointed when he saw Li Yuan's attitude. Said, Li Yuan, just the two of us today, let's talk freely. How about we assume that the US dollar is drained and what should the country do to stabilize the basic market? How about we have a war game? Li Yuan said with a dark face, you overestimate me. I don't know what war games are. I can't even play chess. Is it appropriate to ask an outsider such a thing? If something goes wrong in the future, he might be considered a traitor. He didn't want to discuss any confidential issues. Actually, it's very simple. It's nothing more than simulating a scene. How about I start it? I haven't eaten yet. To make a long story short, I'll treat you to dinner later. No, 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 that's inappropriate. I'm born to be strong, so I can't let others think that I achieved my current results just because of my connections, right? This kid is too sensitive. Isn't it true that you don't want to get into trouble? I'll tell you the truth. I came here specifically just to bring something with me. If you don't hand over some useful things, this matter won't be over. When Li Yuan heard this, he took out his mobile phone and said, then I'll start a recording. Why are you turning on the recording? Let's clear it up first. This matter has nothing to do with me. I was just forced to answer some questions. For Li Yuan, chatting is definitely beneficial, at least the road ahead will be much smoother. But the risk issue must be considered. If he is asked to take risks, he would rather not say anything. The little old man squinted his eyes and did not stop Li Yuan. He wanted to see what Li Yuan could say. It is not that they have not previewed the US dollar interest rate hike. They have even started planning it 5 years ago and have already implemented the first step. If Li Yuan could see the step, he would be capable. After Li Yuan finished it, he said, let's just assume that the dollar is drained. Is it better for us to appreciate the currency or to follow the drain? Of course it's a two-pronged approach, because no matter how much we release money, we can't release more money than the US dollar. We are the global currency, and there is enough market to accommodate it if we release tens of trillions or $20 trillion. If we release tens of trillions of dollars, tomorrow a green onion costs 50 yuan. Releasing water will inevitably lead to inflation. There will be more money on the market, the products are fixed, and the demand is fixed. To absorb this money, everything will increase in price. When the time comes, go to the second floor of the bathing center and ask for a 1999 package, which is enough to soak in a large pool. Do you want to go to a private room? There are no doors. After all, a lot of people are willing to spend 19,999 to go to a private room. Invisibly, the currency will depreciate. Or a substantial depreciation. Once something happens again, money will be no different than waste paper. At that time, prices will be very chaotic and all problems will break out. Li Yuan didn't speak politely. If the other person asked him such a question, he was destined to get such a response. It's like asking a math professor what 1 + 1 equals. The god of wealth did not pay attention, but continued to ask, do you have any explanation for the two-pronged approach? How should we control the degree of this? This issue is not something I should consider. In that case, let's not talk about appreciation. This is a little simpler and the operation is not complicated. But it is not that easy to release water. Where should the water flow? How about flowing into real estate? After all, the only thing that can store water in China is real estate. Li Yuan, it makes no sense to invest in real estate. Those who should get on the real estate train have already taken it. Those who shouldn't get on the real estate train will not get any dividends in their lives, but will become the targets of being squeezed. Where should that go? The stock market. If you want to flow into the stock market, you should first kick out some of the foreign capital in it. Also, you need to rectify the entire industry, otherwise the majority will eventually be eaten up by foreign funds, because those domestic financial institutions are useless. All he knows is following others and waving flags and shouting, others are eating and drinking enough, and even giving him a piece of bone makes him happy. Li Yuan's words were sharper than before. But the meaning is obvious. If the stock market wants to serve as a reservoir, it must first kick out those who are not firm in their stance to avoid bad things along the way. The god of wealth said, even so, most people will not be able to enjoy the dividends of investing in the stock market. Li Yuan said, this is another problem. We must first kick out the moths before we can discuss distribution. As for what you said today, once it gets out, I'm afraid you won't have a foothold in the country. So it's better not to record it? I'm afraid you might accidentally spread it. Li Yuan smiled and said, it's okay. If you can't keep up with the domestic content, you can go abroad. Wherever you go, you can't even get a bite to eat. He discovered that Li Yuan was really as unpleasant as he said at the beginning. But he didn't come here to hear any good words. So he continued to ask, then if water is released in the stock market, do you know what will happen to the property market? Well, it plummeted. Once the stock market starts to rise and a long-term trend occurs, some funds in the real estate market will pour in, causing the real estate market to collapse. But Li Yuan then said, aren't there already purchase and sale restrictions? Just lock yourself in. It's just that the purchase and sale restrictions are not very strong now. It's better to just push them to the end and let the price of new houses go upside down. Second-hand houses cannot be sold. It doesn't matter even if a few units are not sold. As long as there is no transaction, the funds can only stay in the property market. Isn't this what you have planned for a long time? It started a few years ago, Do you have to ask this too? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 263. Li Yuan is actually not very interested, but they currently cannot predict future emergencies, and the scale of the dollar drain will exceed their understanding. The pace of the property market must be accelerated. In fact, they are already very powerful. They can start the layout so many years in advance to block the cycle of releasing the US dollar and raising interest rates to avoid being harvested. It's just not perfect, but no country in the world can match it. The God of Wealth nodded. There is no doubt that Li Yuan's words have proved that his thinking is at a very high level. He can grasp the details well and grasp the general direction. If he doesn't make money, who will? Real masters are all rough and fine. He reached out his hand, ready to press the recording button on Li Yuan's phone. Because the following conversation is not suitable for recording. However, Li Yuan took the phone first. Said, "Actually, you have arrangements over there, and I can see that. You came here to chat with me just to ask me what I think. To be honest, I don't have any opinions. I just feel that some things are implemented too much slow, and there is less sense of urgency. I think it is more appropriate to fight every battle as if it is the last battle." After saying that, he turned off the recording, then found the recording file and clicked the delete button. Forget the recording this time, we didn't have anything to talk about. Of course, there will be nothing to talk about in the future. I have bad conduct and we are not the same people, so I won't let you eat here. The God of Wealth is a little anxious, and he has just gotten to the point. Li Yuan, we still need to continue chatting. At this time, he even wanted to recruit Li Yuan to join him. As for the so-called bad conduct, it doesn't matter as long as the ability is strong enough. How much money can you make by trading stocks all day long? When participating in the big game, money is just a bunch of numbers, and the winner takes all. Li Yuan smiled. If we don't talk anymore, it's time to close the book. It's really inappropriate. I am just an ordinary person. Even if I want to do something, I will do something within my ability. For example, I am going to make some project investments in my hometown of Qinghe County. I hope to give everyone some confidence in consumption. Li Yuan's attitude was very firm and he even got up to call Chen Ji. It is difficult to reverse this situation. Even if Li Yuan is forced to say something, it will not do any good except making Li Yuan unhappy. Because they had a plan a long time ago, and it must be more complete than what Li Yuan said. It's just that the timing is not so precise. Although Li Yuan did not say the specific operation today, he gave a time estimate. It's faster than expected, so I'll be busy in the second half of the year. What Li Yuan said still needs proof. Even if the results of the proof are different, he will give Li Yuan a certain degree of trust and speed up the pace a little. Hearing Li Yuan calling Chen Ji to come back and cook on the phone, he slowly figured it out. He smiled and said to Li Yuan, "Then I will leave first. We will have a chance to meet again in the future." "Well, walk slowly." Li Yuan breathed a sigh of relief after sending the person out. After waiting for another 10 minutes, Chen Ji came back. In total, Chen Ji was gone for only half an hour. She asked doubtfully, "Why did we only chat for such a long time? They usually don't find people easily. If they do, it must be something important. Could it be that they don't like you?" "Well, I'm not interested. Go get some food quickly. I'm going to starve to death." Chen Ji was inexplicably a little disappointed. Li Yuan may have missed the most important opportunity in his life. And there is a high probability that he refused it himself. She didn't quite understand why Li Yuan refused. he would never be able to spend all the money he had in his hands now, so what was the point of pursuing personal money? Something else is most important. At this time, Li Yuan took the opportunity to contact Yu Yu. The company had many things going on in the first half of the year, such as obtaining a brokerage license and a payment license, and building a department was quite complicated. It's okay so far. We don't have many clients in the brokerage business, just our own business. The payment business is also connecting with its major companies, such as Qingtian Huatong and Bixin. Even for the most basic framework, the two sides together hired more than 300 people. Boss, let me tell you something. Miss Wen has become the actual controller of Dawn Capital. Although you and Miss Wen are no longer a couple, they are at least friends. How about you come forward and let Miss Wen take over Dawn Capital? Leave your business to us. We can negotiate all kinds of handling fees. You can't wait to find some partners for his brokerage business. No, even if she is willing to come over, I am too lazy to pick her up. There is really nothing to do, so I just get some stocks from the market and provide services for securities lending. Because of their attributes, those votes are not considered persons acting in concert with Qingtian Capital, even though the actual controller of both companies is Li Yuan. Eat some chips in advance and look for other opportunities to cash out in the future. Even if it cannot be liquidated, you can still earn interest by borrowing securities. Good. Also, Ningde and Mindray Pharmaceuticals are both going to be listed this year. Then we will distribute some of them and let Yao Yingsong negotiate. Yes, I will discuss it with manager Yao. Li Yuan felt relieved after figuring out the progress of the two things. Both projects are auxiliary, but also core. It's not very conspicuous at the moment, and we don't have the foundation. Let's lay the foundation first. The entire Qingtian group is not very good at basics, except for being rich. Now there are more than 10 billion in the book, and another 40 to 50 billion will be obtained soon. Also, help me find a car production platform. Many car companies have closed down recently. Pick one with fewer problems and give it to me in September. Boss, do you want to enter the automobile industry? If you don't enter now, you will enter next year. Li Yuan definitely wants to enter the new energy vehicle industry. The main thing is that there is no threshold for this thing, as long as you have money. The domestic industrial chain is already very complete, and he can just act as an integrator. Boss, Li's boss has already lost hundreds of billions of dollars in his company just to build a car. This thing is really unlucky. This was the first time that Yu took the initiative to give advice to Li Yuan. He was really afraid. Although Qingtian Capital is currently no worse than Leshi, who knows how much trouble it can withstand. Once you get into building a car, it's as deep as the sea. Li Yuan said with a dark face, what's auspicious or unlucky? The company will receive tens of billions soon, and may receive hundreds of billions in the next 2 years. If we don't build cars, where will the money be spent? If we don't build cars, how do we make money in financial markets? Yu. He found that he was overthinking. What his boss makes is not money from building cars, but money from the stock market. As long as cars are built, stocks in related industrial chains can be boosted, and their own bosses can earn a lot of profits from it. Boss, my vision is narrow and I failed to accurately understand your intentions. I will take care of this matter. In fact, Li Yuan really wanted to play with cars. The new energy vehicle of the future will be an entertainment platform. If he wants to incubate his own social software, he will have to use this thing. After all, traditional tracks have been robbed. Especially in the internet ecosystem, no matter how much money is spent, it is difficult for another Douyin or another WeChat to appear. As long as these two platforms do not seek death, they will not die. User habits are a very scary thing. It's like a novel. As long as the author doesn't inexplicably kill the male protagonist and cuckold him, even if the subsequent content is slightly worse, the previous readers will still be able to tolerate it. The only way to create your own internet ecosystem is to reduce the dimensionality and develop something that is more fun, more entertaining, and easier to cultivate user habits. Just like the line in the movie and TV series. Yanzi, I can't live without you. The more interesting thing lies in intelligent driving and large AI models. Anyway, I think next year will be more difficult. They are short of money but have talents, and they happen to be not short of money. The most important point is that other companies have little autonomy when working with them, but we are different. After a while, Chen Ji brought the food. After taking a few bites, Li Yuan suddenly said, "Sister Chen, are there no programs for dinner today? You had a lot of programs for dinner last night." Last night, Li Yuan watched Chen Ji dance for the first time while eating. What can I say about that feeling? He gradually understood why some emperors in ancient times were unwilling to go to court in the morning. And he firmly believes that the aesthetics of his ancestors for thousands of years is correct. It's bullshit that a snowy day goes better with fried chicken. Eating, drinking and dancing with beauties is a perfect match. A group of wild boars who can't eat fine chaff invented something like snowy days with fried chicken, and Western food paired with red wine. At first glance, it seems like I haven't eaten anything good. Hold head high. Zhou Wan really couldn't wait any longer. Logically speaking, Li Yuan should have returned yesterday afternoon, but it was already dark today and there was still no movement. I sent him a message and he responded, but when I asked him when he would be back, he didn't say a word. She glanced at Zhang Yuling, then went over and said, "Yuling, call Xia Yuan and ask him to go home." Zhang Yuling put down the book in his hand and said, "Mom, he is probably busy. After all, in such a big company, it is normal for there to be no holidays. Just come back and have a meal. Everyone will be here later. It won't be a shame to miss him alone." But Zhou Wan saw Zhang Yuling's hesitation and immediately said, "Just say I'm not feeling well." "No, no, no, how can you say that? Let me call him and call him back." Zhang Yuling picked up the phone and called Li Yuan. After getting through, she said a few words and Li Yuan agreed. In less than 10 minutes, Li Yuan came back. Zhou Wan didn't expect Zhang Yuling's words to be so useful, much more useful than hers. She has been sending 60-second voice notes to Li Yuan these days. When Li Yuan came back, he saw that his mother was busy in the kitchen and didn't even give him a chance to say hello. Of course, a family doesn't care about this. I just vaguely felt that something was wrong with my mother. He sat next to Zhang Yuling and asked, "What's wrong with my mother?" Zhang Yuling said in a low voice, "You're just jealous. She called you for several days but you didn't come back. You just answered my call." "Ah. Did she call me? You didn't read the audio?" "No, it's only 60 seconds, and there's a lot more. Who has the patience to listen? I just made up what she said in my head, and then replied uh-huh." At this time, Zhou Wan came out of the kitchen, brought a bowl of dumplings and poached eggs, and said, "Eat a few bites first, and we will start dinner when your dad and grandpa come back." Li Yuan was not hungry at all and asked, "Mom, why are you calling me back in such a hurry? You haven't done anything. Why can't you, a mother, see your son?" Sure enough, I'm jealous. The so-called heartache should be felt, and jealous should still be felt. Li Yuan said helplessly, "Mom, I really have something to do today. The leader comes to inspect our company. I must accompany him throughout the whole process." "What kind of leader? Are you not the biggest in your company?" "Li Yuan." He took out his phone and found a photo. The background of the photo is news. As many people know, my parents usually like to watch the news the most. This person is here for inspection. In theory, he is also the immediate boss of our company. Just after the inspection, he wanted to treat me to dinner, but he received a call from home. Jo-won immediately panicked and hurriedly said, "There's nothing wrong at home, so hurry up and go." Lee Yuen shook his head, "Forget it, I'll go back. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it." Author, Lao He. Chapter 264. Lee Yuen is improving his parents' understanding of himself step by step. After all, today is a small matter, no matter what you do, it won't affect it, but I can't guarantee whether it will be a big deal next time. The transformation of the relationship with parents requires a process. For example, did he dare to find excuses to threaten his parents when he was a child? Obviously I don't dare, but whenever I make it, a portion of stir-fried meat with a feather duster is indispensable. At that time, his parents were on top and he was on the bottom. Whatever happens at home is decided by the parents, and I don't even have the right to express opinions. This is a social structure. Those who control productivity also have the right to speak, so that the entire family can continue to operate. Otherwise, if he was the only child to make the decision, he would definitely spend all the family money on food first. It's exactly the same as the current scene. As the leader, his parents should help him make decisions as little as possible, or force him to do something. At present, in terms of decision-making, the two rarely speak, but they are parents after all, and their will often overrides that of Lee Yuen, so they will inevitably be tougher. It is not obvious in small things, and Lee Yuen's own advantages are great, so it is almost unlikely that problems caused by his parents' strong will occur. But whenever Lee Yuen is weaker, his parents suddenly become stronger in a passive situation. He may be about to follow in Lu Hao's footsteps. Lu Hao was the result of his parents' strong intervention after entering a passive situation. Jo-won was really frightened when she saw that photo. Is his son chatting with such a big shot? And then you called him back. It's impossible not to feel scared. Xiao Yuan, if you tell me in advance about such a big thing, I will know about it. Is it too late to go back now? She asked tentatively. Mom, when they come, they won't tell me in advance. Besides, how can I just tell others about this kind of thing? I can't bear it if something happens. As for going back, forget it, they have left. Well. Jo-won sighed. Some are regrets for their actions, and others are not adaptable to the exchange of positions between themselves and their sons. When Lee Yuen was disobedient as a child, she had no problem threatening him no matter what. Even if you go to college, you can still use this trick. But now, it can't be used. In addition to adding chaos, it is adding chaos. When my son says he is busy with something, he means he is busy with something. Just like when their son clamored to buy candy, but they refused righteously. Lee Yuen stood up, came to Jo-won, put his arm around her shoulders and said, Mom, don't think too much. In fact, it has no effect on me. If I really can't come back, no matter who calls me, I'm sure I won't agree to it either. Well, I won't call you anymore, work is important. Work is not as important as my parents. The main reason is that today is a bit special. If it were anything else, I wouldn't be able to delay the reunion. Then he's not angry. I don't know, but I happen to add his WeChat account and I'll make a video call to ask him. Lee Yuen took out his mobile phone, found the contact information left by the God of Wealth, and then made a video chat with him. Having said so much before, my mother may believe it now, but if she encounters something again in the future, she may be shaken. After all, there was no evidence in the whole process. Jo-won just looked at the phone screen blankly. It wasn't that she didn't react, but she really wanted to take a look. She never thought in her life that she would be able to come into contact with such a big shot. Even though her son became the richest man in other people's words, She just felt that he was a little rich and that the big shots in the county were a little ordinary. She didn't dare think about anything else. After all, when I came to Zhangzhou, I didn't feel like I was being commented on. After a while, the video was connected. Looking at the scene on the other side, Zhou Wan was overwhelmed with emotion. What? Have you figured it out? It just so happens that I haven't left yet. Let's sit down and talk again. Li Yuan smiled and said, nothing, mainly I want to apologize to you. After all, I didn't leave you to have a meal. Heh, if you want to talk, I can treat you to dinner. Ha, forget it, my mother asked me to go home for dinner. While talking, Li Yuan pulled his mother in front of the camera. The god of wealth must know Zhou Wan, even though he has never met her before. He said with a smile, Comrade Zhou Wan, thank you very much for raising such an outstanding son. We will never forget your contribution. Zhou Wan. She couldn't speak because she was trembling. People must be real, there is no doubt about it. Zhou Wan has a lot of idols, but they are not that kind of celebrities. The person in front of me is one of them. Li Yuan saw this and said, my mother just wants to see you. Now she has fulfilled her wish. I will hang up now. Without waiting for the other party to say anything else, Li Yuan hung up the video. Zhou Wan hasn't come back to her senses yet. She had to say that she felt a little aggrieved before and felt that she was no longer close to her son. Now that emotion has completely disappeared, and the son is really no longer on the same level as them. Everything in the past is no longer suitable for use on the son. Only. Why did you just hang up? How rude. Li Yuan said, then you can call me again. Faced with this situation, Zhou Wan gave up again. He said to himself, they are so busy, it is not good to disturb them. People always let others insist, and when it is their turn, they like to make excuses. Li Yuan let go of his mother and returned to the sofa. This matter was over. No matter from which aspect, Li Yuan achieved his goal. Today is the official showdown with my parents, not even before. In the past, in the eyes of parents, elders were the gods. When facing Zhang Yuanqiao, they subconsciously asked Li Yuan to obey his orders. Not only them, but Zhang Yuanqiao himself also thinks so. But in fact many things have changed. For example, 13 Tabeo's business of collecting wine is, to put it bluntly, the money given by Li Yuan. If Li Yuan found someone to collect it himself, he could save at least 10% of the cost, which means that 13 Tabeo would make 15% less profit. After all, they collected more than 900 yuan. Even if Li Yuan had no connections, he could still receive 1,120 yuan. He is willing to benefit those around him, but there is also a prerequisite, don't put pressure on yourself. When Zhang Yuanqiao faced him, he had a great psychological advantage, otherwise he would not have asked him to help him find some money-making work. But this psychological advantage will disappear in the future. Because I am not just a rich man. After he earned his first billion in life, he never thought about being a rich man, otherwise he would have been able to retire by then. Zhang Yuling whispered, why did you make that video? Mom is under a lot of pressure. Don't worry, they will put pressure on you for no reason. I will feel bad. Zhang Yuling, there is no pressure. I know you can come back, that's why I called, otherwise I would just make excuses. Although that is said, making excuses is actually pressure. For Zhang Yuling, deceiving is an unfamiliar skill. Hey, shouldn't your focus be on the word distressed? Hey, it's rare for my husband to start talking about love, but it's a little stiff. From now on, use me as a test subject and practice more. Li Yuan. He also knows that it's very blunt, but it's just a sweet feeling, which he really can't find. He was wondering whether he should watch 2 idol dramas. After all, falling in love is a long-term business, and it has been basically determined that he will not choose anyone other than Zhang Yuling. After waiting for almost half an hour, Zhang Yuanqiao came first, followed by Li Wanhe. While eating, Zhang Yuanqiao asked Li Yuan about his recent work situation, mainly asking what he was busy with on Saturdays and Sundays. Of course Li Yuan used the god of wealth as a shield. After saying this, Zhang Yuanqiao didn't ask any more questions. After dinner, Li Wanhe pulled Li Yuan to the study and said angrily, "What's wrong with you, you little bastard? Are you really not going there even once?" He said the last half of the sentence very quietly. During this period, he found excuses to go to the hospital every day to see Zhou Ranran, bring some things there, and hug his eldest grandson. He was feeling miserable. The little look in his eldest grandson's eyes melted his heart, but he just couldn't recognize it. "I wanted to chat with Zhou Ranran, but I never had the chance. If Li Yuan comes over, Zhou Ranran can still find an excuse. Otherwise, why would Zhou Ranran talk to Li Wanhe? Despite the age difference between the two, they have no relationship at all. Dad, didn't you go for me?" As soon as Li Yuan finished speaking, Li Wanhe stared and said, "Is it the same if I go with you? No matter what, going is still an attitude. If you don't even have an attitude, how chilling would it be for you?" At this time Zhou Wan knocked on the door. Li Wanhe went over and opened the door a crack first. When he saw it was Zhou Wan, he opened the door and let her in. Li Wanhe said, "You came just in time. Didn't you prepare to teach this boy a lesson before? I am here to support you. No matter how rich he is, I am his father." The old couple had already planned to use this incident to teach Li Yuan a lesson. After all, they felt that Li Yuan had indeed gone too far. Zhou Wan glanced at Li Wanhe and said, "Xiao Yuan can do whatever he wants. Ran doesn't have any objections, but you do? Just visit your class and don't be so idle." For a moment, Li Wanhe felt as if his wife had been taken away from her. "What's going on? Are you siding with this brat? He is my son. If I don't stand with him, who will I stand with? With you? I have no blood relationship with you. Is this what you told me before? Before was before, now is now. In short, this is Xiaowen's own business. He can make his own decision. We don't need to say anything." Because of a sudden change, everything was messed up for Li Wanhe. He even forgot about the next step. But Zhou Wan didn't forget it. She said to Li Yuan, "Xiao Yuan, you said before that you wouldn't give Ran anything, but I discussed it with your father. After all, this is not a good idea. No matter what, we can't let the child be wronged. Just watch and give Ran something. We don't spend any of it, we leave it all to our children." Li Wanhe yelled, "What's going on with you? Do you need to ask this guy for his opinion on this kind of thing? You have to give it to him even if he doesn't." Yes, 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 listen to my dad, how much do you want? Showing strength is all about showing strength. Li Yuan doesn't want to have a cold relationship with his parents. When it's time to cater, you still have to cater. About 30 to 50 million per month. If we save for a few years, that's almost enough. Li Yuan said helplessly, "Dad, it's 30 to 50 million a month, and 4 to 500 million a year. Where can I get so much money? Hey, you kid can't even dig into this little money, right? We won't spend it on you. You are also the richest man after all. According to your own statement, you also have 1 to 2 billion, so after all, he is also your son. You can't even spend 4 or 5. Don't you want to spend hundreds of millions of dollars? Li Yuan, Dad, that money belongs to the company. The company belongs to you. Yes, but I need to deduct taxes when I take out the money from the company. I can't bear the high taxes and take out the money to save for you, right? There are still many places where the company needs money. Li Wanhee wanted to say something else, but Zhou Wan held him down and said, just listen to Xiao Yuan and wait until he has money in the future. This brat is just looking for excuses. Li Wanhee didn't believe what Li Yuan said. He is now eager to settle down his eldest grandson so that he will not have the opportunity in a few years. It was just that he originally planned for his wife to join him in putting pressure on Li Yuan to be more generous, but his wife rebelled halfway. He could only bite the bullet and ask Li Yuan for it. Li Yuan said, Dad, I will give you 1 million per month as living expenses. Don't worry about Sister Ran's affairs. I will arrange it myself. If you want to see the child on weekdays, you can go. It doesn't matter if you don't want to watch it. Li Wanhee said to Zhou Wan, look, is this human language? My old Li family really doesn't have this kind of blood. It must have been brought by your old Zhou family. Yes, yes, they are all from my old Zhou family. There is no one in your old Li family who is reliable for 8 generations. It is strange to have such a son. Li Yuan saw the two elders having a disagreement and hurriedly left the study. In fact, this is a very common thing. Dad asked me for money, that's right. It's not wrong to ask for 30 to 50 million a month. After all, according to their thinking, once Li Yuan and Zhang Yuling get married, it will be impossible to plan anything for Zhou Ran. Otherwise, once Zhang Yuling finds out, the old couple will have the courage to live, not to mention losing face. Say both. You can still make some excuses for yourself before getting married. They don't believe that Li Yuan can handle this matter well. In their opinion, this kind of thing is caused by irresponsible young people, and they have to let their adults finish it off and wipe their butts. Isn't this the meaning of adults' existence? It's just that Li Yuan really didn't want them to interfere in this matter. When he told them, he just wanted them to restrain themselves. After Li Yuan walked out, the voices of the two people talking immediately became quieter. In the living room, Zhang Yuling and Zhang Yuanqiao were chatting about something. When he saw Li Yuan coming, Zhang Yuanqiao asked, "What's wrong with your parents?" "I don't know either. We were originally having a good chat about naming the child. But we got into an argument for some reason. Maybe we were not satisfied with the name of the child. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it." Author, Lao He. Chapter 265. Li Yuan didn't know what his parents said in the study. But after he came out, my father never mentioned asking for money again. To put it bluntly, he just didn't let go of his mentality of being the head of the family. It's just that this kind of mentality can easily cross the line. Li Yuan can ignore purely family matters. For example, relatives, favor gifts, etc., he has no energy to care about these. But he really couldn't meet the major issues related to him and the demands of his parents. He doesn't want to end up with a grudge and a rift in the relationship, so a showdown in advance is the best way. The same goes for Zhang Yuanqiao. He used an excuse that no normal person would believe, but Zhang Yuanqiao could only acquiesce. When he heard what Li Yuan said, he could understand that this guy already had the ability to tell lies. It was as if a general who had been fighting all his life suddenly found that the soldiers under his command had outgrown him and he could give orders alone. For a while, I definitely couldn't let go of the feeling of giving orders. But that brave soldier had already reached the enemy's lair and took off the enemy's head. And that enemy was something he had never defeated in his life. So when Li Wanhee and the others came out, Zhang Yuanqiao didn't even ask a question, just pretending that it never happened. On Monday morning, Li Yuan contacted Ho Wenbin, and they went to meet Lu Hao together and chatted with Lu Hao for more than an hour. After coming back, Li Yuan wrote the copy and asked Jushin Media to hype up the topic. It was a hot search on the entire internet that day. After the engagement party, a woman reported her fiancé for rape. There is no doubt that this is a painful topic. Normal people would find it outrageous after seeing it. As the news was unearthed and Jushin Media deliberately leaked it, Lu Hao's identity was exposed. Originally, Lu Hao was an internet celebrity with tens of millions of fans, and many people had seen him. Regarding Lu Hao's sudden suspension of updates for several months, everyone didn't know what was going on, but now they know. Is Ganking being detained, or was he detained for such an outrageous thing? Two factors have contributed to the high popularity of this matter. For a week in a row, it has been ranked number 1 in the hot search, and has spawned several related topics. At this time, Lu Hao terminated his contract with XX Media, and the topic of paying 100 million yuan in compensation once again became a hot topic. The content details the process of Lu Hao's termination of the contract and the losses suffered in this incident. All in all, Lu Hao is now the most miserable person in the world. He was originally a big internet celebrity with an annual income of tens of millions, but because of a woman, he was imprisoned, broke the contract, and was heavily in debt. I made tens of millions and lost 100 million. The company originally demanded 300 million liquidated damages. Jushin Media came forward and brought its team over to negotiate. In the end, they paid 100 million in compensation before Lu Hao terminated the contract with the other party. At the same time, Lu Hao's case was taken seriously by all parties due to public opinion and had to be retried. Another 2 weeks passed, and the woman finally chose to settle out of court. The bride price was not returned. Lu Hao's family didn't have much money, and the liquidated damages were 100 million. Even if Lu Hao borrowed it from Jushin Media, even if he took out all the more than 10 million in the family, he would still be in debt of more than 80 million. On the day he came out, Li Yuan also happened to liquidate the third phase of the fund. He has raised the total size of the 3 funds to $19.5 billion. That is a net profit of $18 billion. In the end, Qingtian Group took away 38.1 billion with capital and profits, and the rest, after deducting management fees, belonged to large national funds. The management fee was close to $500 million, and the large national fund ultimately took away $85.6 billion with capital and profits. A win-win situation. Qingtian Capital's performance for the year has been supported, which translates into an income of more than 3 billion. Qingtian Group's assets have expanded again, with account funds approaching 55 billion. The large national fund received high returns, with a net profit of 78.6 billion. Li Yuan and Ho Wenbin came to pick up Lu Hao. Lu Hao, who had been in there for several months, lost a lot of weight and became depressed. "Thank you, Brother Yuan, Brother Wenbin." After he got in the car, he thanked the two of them. If Li Yuan hadn't come forward, he would have continued to squat. Because this matter is almost unsolvable. The other party would not let go easily, and he could not afford the price of compromise. Ho Wenbin smiled and said, "I am just an errand boy." He was very grateful to Lu Hao. If it hadn't been for Lu Hao, he might not have been able to get so close to Li Yuan. And he is the representative of the third generation of the 13 Taibao. Through this incident, I have barely integrated into Li Yuan's circle. If anything happens in the future, Li Yuan will definitely communicate with them more and give them the opportunity to show their value. Lu Hao said, "Brother Wenbin is so humble. This matter may be just a trivial matter to you, but to me it is the most important turning point in my life. Thank you for your help. Although I have no ability, I will continue to work hard in the future. If you need anything, just come to me." Li Yuan said angrily, "You'd better find a way to pay back the 100 million you owe Jushin Media first. I've been squatting for several months and haven't learned anything else, but I know how to brag." All of a sudden, Lu Hao was embarrassed. Then he gritted his teeth and said, "Brother Yuan, just tell me what to do next." Li Yuan said, "Go to Jushin Media to sell goods. The contract has been prepared for you." Let your parents give you the more than 10 million yuan first, and you can pay back the rest slowly. The basic salary is 100,000 yuan, and the sales amount is 100 yuan. 1%. If Lu Hao doesn't leave, Li Yuan will give him at least a 5% commission, plus his own contract salary. It won't be a problem to make tens of millions a year. But now, the debt of 80 million will have to be repaid for at least 10 years. He also prays that the goods will sell well, starting with 70 million yuan a year. However, Li Yuan has already set up the plot for him, so there must be no big problem. After all, his popularity has been really high during this period, and the Jushin Media account has almost 20 million fans. He is about to become the first internet celebrity to exceed 20 million fans on the internet. Those celebrities with more than 30 million fans are not included. Let me tell you in advance, be prepared for 10 years of no income. If you are really short of money, I will lend you 10,000 yuan a month. Okay. Li Yuan asked the driver to drive to a restaurant. As soon as Lu Hao came out, he had to pick up the wind and wash away the dust. His parents don't know about this yet. There must be a certain rift between Lu Hao and his parents, which can only be made up by time. After dinner, Ho Wenbin left first. Li Yuan drove the car himself and went with Lu Hao to the house he rented at the beginning. He has always paid the rent for this house. Lu Hao hasn't lived here for a long time, but there are still many things left in it. In addition, the weather at the end of May is also quite warm. Without Ho Wenbin, Lu Hao returned to this familiar place. In the end, he couldn't restrain his emotions and started crying while sitting on the sofa. Li Yuan was playing with his mobile phone nearby, asking about Zhang Yuling's living situation. Zhang Yuling's due date is coming soon, in just a few days. She is already admitted to the hospital and is a neighbor of Zhou Ranran. After chatting for a while, Lu Hao had finished venting his emotions and said to Li Yuan, "Is Sister Ran's child already born? It's already a full moon, and she's been asking you to go." "I will go tomorrow." "Yeah. And she wanted to pay directly to help you settle this matter at first, but I scolded her. If you don't understand, just put your grievances on me. She will definitely kiss you. There is no difference with my brother." When Lu Hao heard this, he quickly said, "No, I know Brother Yuan wants me to learn a lesson. From now on, I will only work and no longer think about getting married." "Huh? If you don't get married, your parents won't be able to tear me apart. Brother Yuan, don't worry. I will handle it well with my parents and prevent them from causing you any trouble." Li Yuan waved his hand, "I'm not afraid of trouble, but some things can't be solved by running away." Lu Hao thought for a while and finally nodded calmly. Li Yuan knew that Lu Hao wanted to do it, but he didn't think much about it. This kind of thing cannot be understood in one blow, it also requires some catalysts. As for where the catalyst is, he doesn't know. The next day, Lu Hao went to the hospital to see Zhou Ranran. Zhou Ranran was very happy and even gave him a special gift. Unfortunately, he came empty-handed because he had no money. Not only did he complain, but Zhou Ranran also took the initiative to give him something. The gift was very simple, it was a solid gold figure. In name, it was to let him say goodbye to the past, but in fact, it was to be used for cash. After all, Zhou Ranran couldn't give money directly, and Li Yuan would probably talk to her again if he found out. This piece of gold can be converted into 30 or 40,000 yuan, which is enough for Lu Hao to live at this stage. Lu Hao didn't answer, but Zhou Ranran stuffed it into his pocket, and then brought the child to divert attention from the matter. "Sister Ran, what is the name of the child?" "Zhou Mo. Brother Yuan started it." Zhou Ranran said with a smile, "It's not his turn to get up. I did it myself without listening to anyone's opinions." After staying for more than an hour, Lu Hao saw Zhou Wan coming, and then found an excuse to leave. Zhou Wan asked him to come home for dinner, and he agreed, saying that he was busy for the time being and would come over when he was free. Holding the gold nugget in his pocket, he looked at the sky outside the hospital, and the haze in his heart dissipated a little. He took out his cell phone and called his parents. "Mom and Dad, you keep the 30,000 yuan that Sister Ran gave you before. Put the rest in my card. I will use it to pay off the debt. I am also going to sell the house. Brother Yuan has found a job for me, but for the time being I have to use my salary to pay off the debt. Brother Yuan said I can pay it off in 10 years. I will give it to you after I earn money in 10 years. Brother Yuan has done his best to fish me out. After all, biological parents may not be able to repay kindness with kindness, not to mention that we are just growing up. He didn't harm me and guided me on the right path. I don't dare to ask for anything more too many, and I don't have the shame to ask him any more conditions. No matter how much money he has, it belongs to him. What does it have to do with our family? It doesn't matter if you don't want to take it out. Just treat it as the pension money I left you. I won't go back in the future. Just treat it as I paid back what I owe you." Lu Hao found Song Jiajia and re-signed the contract with Jushin Media. The previous account also came back. He will have his first live broadcast tonight, because this is when he is at his most popular. And he quickly got the script. It's actually very simple, the main focus is just one character. Honest and honest, won't lie, have no heart. The price of bait is very cheap. If you buy it individually, it costs about 3.5 yuan per bag. For more than 5 bags, it costs 3 yuan per bag. For more than 10 generations, it costs 2.5 yuan per bag. The more you buy, the more favorable the price will be, with the lowest price reaching 2 yuan. Compared with the baits that generally cost 8 to 9 yuan or more than 10 yuan per bag on the market, the goods he wanted to bring could be said to be free of charge. The bait definitely has no special characteristics, it is just an ordinary bait on the market. But it is definitely the most cost-effective, bar none. Lu Hao doubted whether Li Yuan could make money at such a price. The content of his live broadcast is to explain some fishing techniques and matters, and also introduce the bait and fishing gear. It's just different from other live broadcast rooms. He wanted to say that the bait was very ordinary, the quality of the fishing gear was average, and there were no tricks. After all, his main focus is a simple and honest persona. This kind of persona is the easiest to win trust, and it must not be too exaggerated. He believed that Li Yuan's design would be fine. The person he admires most in the world is none other than Li Yuan. After memorizing the live broadcast process, the live broadcast room is opened. Almost immediately, 100,000 people flooded into the live broadcast room. As the live broadcast continued, it reached 500,000 people. Even when it was about to be broadcast at the end, there were still more than 300,000 people. However, the sales results were not that good, and the total sales were less than 2 million. And he only does this kind of live broadcast once a month. After all, he has to ensure the content output of his account, and he will go fishing starting tomorrow. Li Yuan also planned fishing content for him, this time it was wilderness fishing. The more you fish, the more you fish for, which is the theme of his next video content. Although he does not have a divorce certificate, his engagement photos with his ex-girlfriend are the same. Li Yuan understands traffic. Just looking at the turnover of goods, he found that Li Yuan was still too optimistic. At this rate, I won't be able to pay off my debts in 20 years. He can only take one step at a time. After all, this is the second chance Li Yuan gave him and the last time in his life. Missing it basically means your life is over. Even if Li Yuan doesn't ask him for money, he can't expect to be successful in this life. People like Ho Wenbin followed Li Yuan around, so what was he dissatisfied with? At this time, Song Jiajia was also watching the effect of Lu Hao's first live broadcast. Gu Dongshen now sells goods every 2 days, selling hundreds of millions each time. Jushan Media's net profit is more than 10 million. When it comes to Lu Hao, she had no choice but to send a message to Li Yuan, saying, "Lu Hao, you are wrong this time." After his account change incident, the cohesion of fans is not that strong at all. Now even though the popularity is very high, the fans don't buy it at all. Soon, Li Yuan replied, "It's okay, I'll be up soon." Huh? Why? Because the fisherman feels bitter. It has been hard for the world to fish for bait for a long time. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 266. Li Yuan was not joking when he said that the world has been suffering for a long time, but it is a fact. Fishing is a national sport, and 95% of it is played by men. This is one of the few entertainments available to men, but the bait is very expensive. It's so expensive that many people have to give up their only form of entertainment. After all, for many people, entertainment doesn't have to be that expensive. There are more than a dozen pieces of bait, and there are dozens of types in total. A fishing rod worth 500 to 600 yuan can cost you 20 or 30 yuan for a set of sublines, and a float costs dozens of yuan. Of course, compared with skincare products and some beauty projects, fishing is just a poor entertainment project. But there are a few fishermen who are willing to spend money on themselves. As long as you are willing to spend money on yourself, there are many more fun things in the world than fishing. Fishing, a market worth tens of billions now and hundreds of billions in the future, has been tapped out bit by bit. What Li Yuan has to do is to sink users, and sinking users need to be fermented. He was never worried about not being able to sell it, just not making any money. After all, from beginning to end, he never thought about doing more profitable business. No matter how much he earns, can it compare to what he earns in the financial market? In one night, he can earn the annual profits of 10 listed companies. The total number of listed companies with A-share net profits exceeding RMB 40 million is only 487. Even if he performs badly, even if the US stock market is a little worse, it is still not difficult to earn an average of 10 to 20 million US dollars in a trading day. He lived next door to Zhang Yuling, but during the day there were more people coming to visit her. Li Yuan rarely had time to spare and began to sort out the structure of Lianhua Trust. Lotus Trust has just finished its structure and there are no funds in it yet. There will be about 5 billion in funds at the end of the year, and he will make up an additional 45 billion. 50 billion in funds is not too much, but not too much. He can't do short-term business either, he can only plan based on medium and long-term plans. Then the space that can be blocked is relatively limited. Those big stocks in the US stock market all have potential. For example, Apple, if it enters the market at the end of the year, will double next year, and several circuit breakers the year after next will be a super big T. While the fuse is being broken, you can also enjoy the benefits brought by the large water release. As long as we survive October this year, the situation will get much better. Even if Li Yuan has no previous opportunities to compete against him, it is no problem to build a DAI fund every 2 months. The entire Lotus Trust cannot only be engaged in the securities market. It is also necessary to hold some company stocks. Today he is mainly thinking about how to divide. He still has more than 30 billion US dollars in Chenji's account, and he has to spend it all. Because even if we know there will be good opportunities next year, we still can't put all the more than 30 billion US dollars into it. US stocks are more sensitive than A shares, and they are not their home court. There is someone behind every penny in the big ticket. Take Apple, For example, with a market capitalization of US $700-800 billion. On the surface, he can invest in it at will, and it won't be a problem to get us $50-6 billion. In fact, he can only enter $1 billion at most, otherwise he will be strangled by the funds inside. The sensitivity of small tickets is even lower. After all, there are not that many funds to focus on rotten meat. For example, before Nvidia, Li Yuan only dared to invest $200 million. But when he was targeted too harshly, he thought about fighting those people at Nvidia. That is to say, Nvidia has just started its layout and has not really risen yet. Similar to Apple, Microsoft has no idea how much capital is involved in voting. The more money it invests, the more severely it will be strangled. No matter how long or short he is, he can't even hope to make money. It's no problem to get in with a small amount of money. $1 billion, $2 billion, mainly for one person's companionship, even if the other party knows about it, there is no way to cut it off. You can't give up everything just because of this little money. A-shares are short of such good tickets. If they were available, Li Yuan would do the same thing. If a ticket has a market value of several trillion or even 10 trillion, the water storage capacity will come. 10% of Qingtian Group costs at least $4 billion. Qingtian Capital 10%, US $1.5 billion. Compare your heart by 20%, $10 million. Jushin Media 20%, $40 million. Qingtian Securities 10%, $20 million. Baixian pays 20%, $30 million. Qingtian Group also controls several other companies, so the shareholding ratio for each ticket will increase by a few points. For example, Qingtian Group holds 70% of the shares of Qingtian Capital, then Lotus Trust is equivalent to holding 17% of Qingtian Capital, which is equivalent to holding 18% of Bixin. These must be settled before October, because the time agreed between him and Wen Yuxian is not far away, and he will definitely make a comeback in the A-share market. But there is one more thing that must be done. He took a look at Song's shares. The market value once exceeded 30 billion, but recently it fell back to around 24 billion. Through recent changes in shareholdings, the Song family has reduced its holdings by nearly 10 points. In other words, the number of outstanding shares on the market has reached 30%. This ratio already meets Li Yuan's needs. He posted a sad emoji on his social account, and then added the text, "We broke up." Almost instantly, Song's shares fell by the limit. Song Jiajia was still busy with the work of Jushin Media and Bixin. She didn't know what happened at all. She didn't know that she had been broken up until her father called. She sent a message to Li Yuan. Li Yuan replied, "Mr. Song, I think since we are workplace partners, we should not have any personal relationships. This is not good for the company." Hey, I didn't say I wanted to fall in love with you, did I? But others have misunderstood. Let me clarify. Song Jiajia experienced for the first time what happened when you ignored him in the past, but now he is so high that you can't reach him. Everyone in my family thinks I am crazy. How could you be willing to break up with Li Yuan? The market has gotten so bad this year that Song's shares have doubled. Isn't it because she is in love with Li Yuan? Li Yuan's reputation as a stock god is becoming more and more stable. Especially when Nvidia was killing everyone some time ago, everyone felt that he would definitely have to lose money. What was the result? People made tens of billions of dollars backhand. During that time, Song's shares issued several announcements on reduction of holdings, but the stock price did not fall, and countless funds rushed in to take over the shares. After the stock price of Song's shares fell to the limit, an announcement came out. Qingtian Capital plans to reduce its stock holdings. This has pushed the concept of love stocks to a climax. Li Yuan is about to run away, What's the point of waiting for this ticket? Of course it's a courtesy to run first. It is foreseeable that Song's shares will have to spend the next week at the limit. As for the future, just wait until it goes bankrupt, garbage company. Song Dalong finally became the richest man in the city during this period, but in the blink of an eye, he was knocked down. And Song Jiajia suffered an unreasonable disaster. Since this incident, her phone calls have not stopped, and relatives are calling to talk about it. Even openly and secretly blaming her. He obviously didn't do anything, but suddenly he was no longer human inside and out. Li Yuan's fans think there is something wrong with her, or that Li Yuan doesn't like her anymore. My family also felt that I had done something wrong. When they were enjoying the benefits brought by Li Yuan's fame, they never thought about the consequences. Song Jiajia didn't go to Li Yuan to say anything, at least the Song family didn't suffer in this matter. And the two companies she currently manages are not necessarily worse than Song's shares. Since Jushin Media began to vigorously develop sales, Gu Dongsheng has been able to contribute 2 to 3 billion in revenue a year, with a net profit of about 1 billion. Other anchors who receive advertisements are also carefully selected by Jushin Media, and they can also get a share of the pie. Of course, the biggest profit comes from liquidated damages. After Jushin Media became popular, many anchors wanted to buy out their contracts, or made arrangements with other media companies to poach people directly. For example, after the twin brothers Xiao Yang had more than 10 million fans, some companies were willing to pay 100 million to recruit people. It's just that Jushin Media didn't agree because according to the contract, it needed to pay 400 million. The more fans the twins have, the longer they stay at Jushin Media, and the greater the price they pay for poaching people. Currently, there are only 2 people carrying goods, and there is no other opportunity. Song Jiajia also feels that now is the stage of harvesting traffic and is not suitable for large-scale delivery. Gu Dongsheng had no choice. He had been reported too many times. In addition, the content of the video was about showing off wealth, which inherently had shortcomings. He had to seize the opportunity to cash in. For Lu Hao, it can only be said that the heat has arrived. Jushin Media has new people signing contracts every day, and there are also old people who have paid liquidated damages and left the company, bringing with them their experience in Jushin Media. In terms of revenue and profits, Jushin Media has long surpassed Song's shares, but it has not yet been listed. Even if she can't get any benefits from Jushin Media, with this resume, she can find a job with an annual salary of tens of millions. For her, who had just graduated a year ago, her life had already begun to take a turn for the worse. As for Bai Xian, she still doesn't understand it well, so she can only follow Li Yuan's request bit by bit. Bixin's revenue is not good either, with revenue of 200 million yuan and net profit of only over 6 million yuan. I recently opened a mall and took advantage of the popularity of Gu Dongsheng and Lu Hao. I made a little money, but not much. After all, Gu Dongsheng's side had just started bringing goods, and the price subsidy was relatively large. Bixin's side only had a handling fee. If it sold 100 million, it would give Bixin 500,000 or 600,000 at most. Lu Hao's side was even worse, and his heart was against him. The server bandwidth fees paid by the platform are more expensive than the handling fees. Time passed day by day, and Song Jiajia discovered that Li Yuan had disappeared. For 4 whole days, Li Yuan did not reply to her about the company's arrangements, which was very rare before. She contacted Yu, but Yu also said that she could not contact Li Yuan. No one called Li Yuan rashly, they all communicated in advance to make sure Li Yuan was available. Everyone knew that Li Yuan had an irregular schedule, and no one wanted to trouble Li Yuan over trivial matters. Inside the hospital, many people were waiting at the door because Zhang Yuling was about to give birth. For example, Zhang Yuanqiao was very anxious, and Zhou Wan and Li Wanhe were pacing back and forth. Although Ho Jiankuo and the others were not so anxious, they also showed great expectations. They know very well what this means. For example, his family has begun to urge Ho Wenbin to get married. He must get married within a year so that he can catch up with him in the future. It doesn't matter whether Zhang Yuling's side is a boy or a girl, as long as the age difference between the children is not big. Li Yuan leaned against the wall and was the calmest person present. In fact, he must not be at peace in his heart, but his temper has been relatively cold since his rebirth. Finally, after 4 hours, the door to the room was opened. Is Zhang Yuanqiao here? Here, there, there. Zhang Yuanqiao's steps were a little brisk at this time. The baby has been born. Mother and baby are safe. Please come over and sign with me. At this moment, everyone breathed a sigh of relief. Although Li Yuan paid for the hospital stay, it was Zhang Yuanqiao, the grandfather, who nominally made the final decision. After the door opened, Zhou Wan couldn't wait to rush in. Li Yuan waited for a while before going in. Zhang Yuling's face was a little pale, and his whole person was a little weak. The sideburns and bangs were stained with sweat and stuck to her face. When she saw Li Yuan, she laughed and asked, "Am I awesome?" "Awesome." Li Yuan sat next to her and wiped the sweat from her face. "As for the children, I have plenty of time, so there is no rush to see them now. Would you like something to eat?" he asked softly. Zhang Yuling shook his head. "I just want to see you." "What are you looking at?" "It feels good to just take a look. Before, I always wondered if you would be sad if something happened to me." "Well, yes. So nothing happens to you." Li Yuan said something against his will. Because nothing would happen to Zhang Yuling, and even if there was an accident, he could have a cesarean section immediately, so he didn't have any sad rehearsals. "Have you decided on a name for your child?" I'm afraid I've deprived Grandpa of the right to name him. I want to ask him before I talk." Li Yuan never thought about it at all. Although Zhang Yuanqiao would not refuse no matter what name he gave, there was no need to compete with his elders on such a trivial matter. After all, when he has a grandson, he can also seize his son's rights. The name Grandpa chose must be something very old-fashioned. There's nothing wrong with being old-fashioned. The main thing is that the name is catchy. When I'm in school, I can't think of the whole class as Zixuan, even if it's called Zhang Deidu. Zhang Yuling. Forget it, let my grandpa name him. I don't know why you thought of a name like Zhang Deidu. I don't want my son to be laughed at when he goes out in the future. She originally wanted to let Li Yuan choose the name. After all, she couldn't care what others thought. She only considered Li Yuan's emotions. As a result, Li Yuan opened his mouth and frightened her. This kind of name must never appear. I'm just making an analogy. I can't even use an analogy. I took a look and my son is very handsome. A wrinkled piece of shit, how can it be so handsome? Who wasn't like this when they were young? They would grow out in 2 days. If he could be as good looking as me, he wouldn't have to worry about food and drink in his life. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 267. Li Yuan's attention was really not on the child. After all, too many people came in to see the child first, so his attention was dispensable. Zhang Yuling held his hand tightly, seeming to feel something. It only proves that her original choice was not wrong. Only Li Yuan was by her side, no one else. "Husband." Zhang Yuling spoke very quietly because there were medical staff nearby. "Huh? What's wrong?" "It's okay, I just want to shout, come closer and lend me your shoulder for a while, I'm a little sleepy." "Good." Li Yuan sat directly on the bed and let Zhang Yuling rest against him. Almost an hour later, Zhang Yuanqiao and the others began to discuss naming their child. Because of Zhou Ranran's existence, Li Wanhe, who was still a little obsessed with his child's surname, had no objection at all at this time. Does your last name matter? Anyway, under the current situation, I can't bear the surname Li. Zhang Huaitian. Zhang Shiyue. Zhang Yuan Qiao's names are indeed very old-fashioned, but they are all based on metaphors and allusions. Such a name is appropriate at any time, in any scene, or in any place. Think about the scene where an old lady in her 70s or 80s is called Zixuan. Or the scene where an old man in his 70s or 80s is called Zixuan. In this matter, Li Wanhe has his own ideas. Although he can't take away his surname, he can at least add the seniority of Lao Li's family, right? Why don't you call me Zhang Zaiun? Zai is the senior member of the Li family. Carrying, it sounds a bit unpleasant, it seems like transporting. The country is rich and the people are strong, how about calling me Zhang Zaiqiang? The country and the rich are in conflict with other generations. Zhang Yuanqiao rolled his eyes, he had been doing this for a long time, he was a member of the old Li family. No wonder he said this word out of nowhere. Their family doesn't have much seniority because they have lost their genealogy long ago. Li Yuan listened nearby, deeply afraid that his father would say that a river cub was born. This word doesn't match a bit, it's too vulgar. Then I'll look it up in the dictionary. Oh, what's there to look up in the dictionary? It's always right to listen to me. Old leader, can you give us a word? But your position is really inappropriate. There were differences between the two sides. Li Wanhe felt that he had already given in, but the old leader refused to agree. For half an hour, neither party could come up with a result. Finally, Li Wanhe said directly to Li Yuan, Xiao Yuan, can you tell me what it should be called? Ah! Li Yuan didn't listen at all. Aren't the two of them arguing all the time? What are their names? Zhang Huaitian, Zhang Shiyue, Zhang, Zaiun, Zaiqiang, Zaida. Li Yuan. He finally understood why Zhang Yuling said their naming was too old-fashioned. The name chosen by Zhang Yuanqiao would be awarded a maximum of 6 points, which could only be considered a passing grade. As for the name given by my father, it is a reflection of my childhood. How about calling me Naoki? What a name. Zhang Yuanqiao thought for a while and agreed very much. Even Li Wanhe's eyes lit up when he heard the name. Li Yuan. I'm just trying to give you an example, I hope you won't always think about those classical words. What kind of book from heaven and earth, what kind of luck? Then my name is Zhang Zishu. Li Yuan hurriedly said, are you sure you don't want to think about it anymore? I just said casually, you still have the final say on this matter, I don't care. Zhang Yuanqiao waved his hand and said, no, this name is pretty good. The names we have given are all too old, but this name is young and majestic. As long as you're satisfied. It was just a name anyway, and when Zhang Yuling woke up, he would definitely change it when he heard it was this name. It is actually very simple to change the name of a newborn child, after all, it leaves no trace. It's not convenient after going to school. After a while, Zhang Yuanqiao and Li Wanhe went out to arrange meals. After all, Ho Zhenqiu and the others were all here today, and they had to take care of a meal. Li Yuan couldn't leave, and Zhou Wan had to stay here to take care of her, so it was just the two of them to deal with it. Almost 2 hours later, Li Yuan's arms were numb and Zhang Yuling woke up. The child was lying next to her, and Zhou Wan sat on the other side and watched. People's eyes are becoming more and more cloudy, because the eyes are the windows to the soul, and few people who live past the age of 40 are pure at heart. But when Zhou Wan looked at the child, her eyes were different from anyone else. That feeling is absolutely pure. Li Yuan didn't receive such treatment, although his parents still cared about him, even if they sacrificed their lives for him. but it is impossible not to have your own little thoughts, and you can also plan something. Facing his grandson at this time, what else can he think of? What else can be planned? You can't expect your grandson to provide for the elderly couple in their old age, right? This is the purest. Seeing Zhang Yuling waking up, Zhou Wan immediately said, "Yuling, look at your son quickly." "Okay." Zhang Yuling smiled and hugged him. She said, "Mom, what should the child eat? I feel like I don't have anything for him to eat." Zhou Wan smiled and said, "Take milk powder first, but you also have to try to feed me. I think it will be available tomorrow." "Okay." The child's skin has improved slightly. Zhang Yuling saw it when he first came out, and his skin was very red. She glanced at Li Yuan and said, "What is the child's name?" Zhang Naishu." Li Yuan was a little embarrassed. She thought Zhang Yuling would protest the name right away, but she said, "This name sounds nice. It must not have been given by my grandfather." You haven't heard of this name?" Zhang Yuling looked confused. "Should I have heard of it?" Li Yuan sighed and said, "This is a name that appears in an idol drama." Immediately afterwards, Li Yuan took out his mobile phone, searched for the drama, and let Zhang Yuling take a look. Zhang Yuling looked at it briefly for a few minutes and said, "It's nothing, the name is really nice, I like it too, that's it." "Yeah, okay. Anyway, there is a high probability that my son's peers will not watch those old idol dramas in the future, because the concept is different. The ancient idol drama is a piece of dog-licking literature from beginning to end. Basically, it's excellent boys and ordinary girls. At first, the ordinary girls chase each other, and then the excellent boys gradually turn into lickers. Either it's an ordinary boy and an outstanding girl, and they are the licking dogs of the outstanding girl from the beginning to the end. There are so many dog lickings in China, and the dog licking movies and TV series over the past decade or so have contributed a lot to this. Have you never held a child? No, I brought it to hug you. I don't have any other hands. Then let's hold the baby and take a photo together. Good. Soon, Zhou Wan helped take a photo. Maybe this photo won't come out in a few years, but for Zhang Yuling, what she wants is not other people's approval. She has never pursued anything romantic or not. Just be happy. Taking photos is just a souvenir. Li Yuan was very calm with the children, which proved to Zhang Yuling that Li Yuan had such a character and had nothing to do with others. Li Yuan is not the kind of character who can get excited easily. And there is no record of this incident in his circle of friends. Zhang Yuling at least posted a friend circle that was only visible to him to record it. For Li Yuan, this matter is worth being happy, but it is only worth it. There are many things worth being happy about in life, and tomorrow is always more important than today. The so-called living in the present means not experiencing the suffering of the future. He is unlikely to endure hardship in the future, but he still needs to maintain a serious attitude. After all, no one can say what will happen in the future. But when he looked at Zhang Yuling, his eyes began to become gentle. Some of Zhang Yuling's emotional expressions had an increasing impact on him. There is no longer only good and bad in his eyes, and emotions are no longer so black and white, with clear boundaries. Until one day, Zhang Yuling said to him excitedly, "I think Naoki will be very smart and handsome in the future." Li Yuan knew that Zhang Yuling must have secretly watched those ancient idol dramas. But it's not too old for her. It's originally from her time, but her life experience is a bit special, so she hasn't read it. Now it's replenished. Anyway, Li Yuan will never watch that type of movies, TV series, or even novels again. Seeing too much will make him misjudge human nature and make him feel that the world is too beautiful. In fact, most people are not Zhang Naishu, and they are not even Dakin. At least Dakin still has the halo of the protagonist and has gained something. Most people are passers-by in movies and TV dramas. When the plot requires it, they come out to play the role of a dog licker. When the plot doesn't need it, kick it away. Passerby should go to passerby. Be the kind of person who wants to be a heroine will never get it in his life. If you get it, then there is a high probability that you will take over. Or maybe a director played a master's game with him, she was playing a role, and she happened to choose you as a supporting role. After all, ordinary people don't have the ability to direct other people's lives, and their own lives are in a mess. He is capable, but he doesn't want to make a romance movie. He just wants to make a good life movie. But what Zhang Yuling said should be right. After all, the parents' IQs are not low, and the children should not be too bad either. Of course, we cannot rule out the possibility that the child is a fool. Just like that, without knowing it, it had been more than half a month since Zhang Yuling gave birth to the child. Zhou Ranran, who was on the same floor, was already preparing to go back. Li Yuan took the time to come over and take a look. I've been here a few times before, but there are always people here. Zhou Ranran's parents had already gone home early to decorate their home today, and they would come over to pick them up tomorrow, so there was a brief opportunity to meet. Zhou Ranran was in good spirits. When she saw Li Yuan coming in, she asked, "Do you want to hold the baby or me?" Li Yuan smiled and said, "Sister Ran has given birth to a child, and the standards have been relaxed." She would never have said such a thing before. "Ang, I just thought about it a little bit. Aren't you afraid that I will compete with the children for food now? You can't finish eating." Ah. Li Yuan didn't know when he noticed that Zhou Ranran's young woman charm was getting stronger and stronger. It only takes a year for her to transform from a little girl to the two completely opposite temperaments she has now. Li Yuan knew that she was under great psychological pressure because her parents definitely wanted to find the father of the child. Of course, it is possible that he is suspected, but there is just a lack of evidence. This evidence does not refer to paternity testing, but what Li Yuan or Zhou Ranran said personally. "Uncle Fang and the others didn't put any pressure on you, did they?" "No, they still expect me to support their son. Even if they have ideas, they won't say anything." "Lied to me? Hey, what's wrong with you? You wouldn't talk nonsense at times like this. Hurry up, please. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it." Author, Lao He. Chapter 268. It's not that Zhou Ranran has any sense of crisis. If there is, it's something Zhang Yuling should consider. I simply feel that Li Yuan is getting busier and busier. If she doesn't take the initiative, the relationship between the two will probably end here. It was a rare opportunity in itself. She stayed in her hometown for a year, and Li Yuan rarely went back. When they met in the future, even if she wanted to send someone a message, Li Yuan was not in the mood to accept it. She doesn't want to be single all her life. She can't support Li Yuan on the surface, but secretly she has to steal some time from Zhang Yuling, right? Such as now. The villa is decorated. Are you going home for the new year? Perhaps for Zhou Ranran, the future expectation is to go home during the new year. This year, not necessarily. I will definitely go back next year. This year it mainly depends on Zhang Yuling's situation. If she wants to go back, then she can. Zhang Yuling can still make the decision in this matter. But next year, I will definitely have to come back. Well, according to the previous needs, I have decorated 2 more units. One is for me to live in, and the other is for you as a spare. Zhou Ranran didn't know whether to prepare for Li Yuan or to prepare for her own pregnancy. Anyway, the 2 villas are connected by a secret door. Okay, I'll go back and have a look in 2 months. Huh? Really? Really, I will be relatively free in the next few months, and I will only start to be busy after October. Li Yuan has been setting up shop during this period, but actually he hasn't paid much attention to it. I have never been to Joshin Media, and I have never operated it at Qingtian Capital. These few months are his window period to finalize the systems of several companies. Zhou Ranran's skin is still as tender as before, and Li Yuan likes her in this state very much. Perhaps the two of them will never have anything in common in their careers, but they can still rely on each other. Does that mean you have to stay in your hometown for a long time? Zhou Ranran was already looking forward to it. I can't stay for a few days, maybe 3 to 5 days at most. Oh, then wait for my news then and try to come back after the 10th. Zhou Ranran felt that time was very short, and if it happened for a few more days, it would only leave her with regrets. When Zhang Yuling moves there in the future, let alone 3 to 5 days, 3 to 5 hours will be a luxury. Li Yuan bit Zhou Ranran's cheek and said, "Don't worry about time so much. Sister Ran misses me. I can go back at any time. Besides, you can also come to me." "Huh? Is that okay?" "Sure. Then let me take a bite. Don't make it too obvious." "Don't worry, no one saw it, except Zhang Yuling. She most likely doesn't want to look there now. She had just given birth, and she knew very well that she would not be able to return to normal within a month after giving birth." The next day, Li Yuan sent Zhou Ranran away, and then accompanied Zhang Yuling while busy with his work. Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps is now only 6 billion in size. During Guo Meng's tenure, he successfully caused the fund to lose 60%, which is considered famous in the entire fund circle. If she leaves Qingtian Capital, there is a high probability that no other company will be willing to hire her, and they will not even give her a handyman position. Who wants to touch this bad luck? The funds currently in the fund are either Li Yuan's crazy fans who firmly believe that Li Yuan will not give up the fund, or they just forgot. After all, when the deal was taken over, there was 100 million in this fund, and those people had most likely completely forgotten about it. Otherwise, after so many twists and turns, it would have been long ago time to leave. The current net value of the fund is only 1.43, which is still profitable for many people. For example, the capital that entered the market from the beginning still made 40 points. For example, the 100 million capital received previously was also earned. Fu Zonghai is one of them. He is a crazy fan of Li Yuan. He followed Li Yuan when he only had a few thousand fans. He has followed Li Yuan until his fans exceeded 3 million, 5 million, and now he has 70 million fans on the entire network. He was a little bit impressed, and at first he was very disdainful, thinking that people who speculate in stocks online are all scammers, just to cut leaks. But as time went on, his understanding was refreshed bit by bit. At the beginning, he only invested 100,000 yuan, which he saved 4 years after graduation. At his peak, that 100,000 yuan earned him nearly 300,000 yuan. Then Li Yuan left and was replaced by a black widow with fund certificates. After he missed the best opportunity to leave the field, he chose to lie down inside. He didn't believe that he could lose all his high profits. Facts have proved that even if you don't lose it, you will almost lose it. At present, he only has 140,000 left. He is 27 years old this year and has graduated from college 5 years ago. His parents have collected a down payment for him throughout their lives and hope that he will get married as soon as possible. He struggled every day whether to spend money to get married. "Because I met a girl on a blind date and she asked for a bride price of 200,000 yuan. His parents said they could scrape together 50,000 yuan, but his salary increased a bit this year, and he saved more than 40,000 yuan after frugally saving his mortgage. As long as the money in the fund is withdrawn, it will be enough to hold a wedding." But he was unwilling to do so. He has been leaving messages on Li Yuan's social account during this time. "Yuan Shen, Sunny Mixed Small and Medium Caps is your first fund, just like your child. Do you really not care about it? If Li Yuan doesn't care, then he will withdraw. Unfortunately, Li Yuan never replied to him. Yesterday, he wrote a few hundred words about his current situation and sent it to Li Yuan via private message, hoping that Li Yuan could respond to him. However, the same results were lost. He will be like this for the rest of his life, and no matter how his salary increases in the future, it will be very limited. Once he gets married, pressure from all aspects will come one after another, and he will not have the chance to change his destiny. In fact, he also knew that it was impossible for Li Yuan to reply to a certain person's message alone. After all, with his current status, any news may be misinterpreted, and any words may be used to make a big fuss. The WeChat notification sound came, and he subconsciously picked up his phone. It was sent by the blind date. The two had dinner together twice and talked about getting married. For a nerd like him, don't expect any romantic love stories, it would be nice if someone could take an interest in him. Fu Zonghai, you keep evading my family's conditions. Are you dissatisfied with me? Or do you think I'm not worthy? Seeing this news, he felt troubled. Although he earns more than 8,000 yuan a month, it is not enough in this society. Even my parents have been saying that I was lucky this time and met a good girl. A gift of 200,000 yuan is nothing, the woman will definitely bring it back anyway. Of course not, it's just that I still have hundreds of thousands in financial management, and I can't withdraw it for the time being. Can you tell your parents that I will withdraw it for you in half a year? He knew very well that once Li Yuan returned to trading, funds would be restricted. Basically, the per capita investment of 50,000 yuan was the limit. 50,000 yuan, even if it is doubled 10 times, is not considered a fortune. If Li Yuan has not returned in half a year, then there will be no point in continuing. But the other party immediately replied, I know you bought the fund, but can't the fund be withdrawn at any time? Are you making excuses? No, I bought Li Yuan's fund, and I'm waiting for Li Yuan to come back. How could he come back? Li Yuan has been making money for himself. He can no longer make money for the people. No, I believe he will definitely come back. Fu Zonghai? Are you kidding me? Do you know how ridiculous your excuse is? You just want to marry me home without paying a penny. Anyway, you will have a child by then, and you can do whatever you want with me. Is it not your decision whether to give it or not? I can sign an agreement with you and give you 100,000 yuan in advance. No, not even 1 cent less than 200,000. I only gave you 2 days to think about it. If you haven't made any move after 2 days, don't blame me for not giving you a chance. These words were particularly cold to Zonghai. He knew that the problem was also his own, and he couldn't make a decision. After the funds are withdrawn from Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps, there will be no more opportunities to enter the market. The woman will not let him buy financial management, and the money does not belong to him. He can add the woman's name to the house book, or he can give 100,000 yuan first and write an IOU for the remaining 100,000 yuan. But he was reluctant to withdraw from Qingtian Mixed Small and Medium Caps. This is the only dream he can dream of in his life. Over the next 2 days, he put his hand on the redemption button several times. I have even reached the step of confirming, but I still can't convince myself to press it. Until the woman sent a photo. In the photo, there is a neat 200,000. Fu Zonghai, look at me, it was just the first day we met. After hearing about my parents' request, he immediately went to the bank to withdraw it. This is the attitude of a person to get married. No woman in the world would do this like you. Marry you. Delete it and put it down. When Fu Zonghai edited a message and sent it back, the only response he received was a red exclamation mark. Not long after, he received a call from his parents, because his parents already knew that the woman was looking for someone else. What greeted him was a verbal spat, with all kinds of comments saying that he was ignorant of the seriousness. He could only listen. After all, The place where he lives now is provided by his parents. He is a small role in society and has no confidence to resist life. When his parents got tired of scolding and hung up the phone, he lay on the bed and breathed a sigh of relief. In the end, the final words from my parents were still the same as the third child. We don't have a son like you. What are we working so hard for? Don't we just want to see you get married? If you don't get married, how can we go see our ancestors after we die? You should reflect on it and go on a blind date right away. He doesn't resent it because he has no future and is just dawdling. If he didn't have his parents, he wouldn't even be qualified to go on a blind date. Those girls in the blind date market would turn around and leave after hearing about his situation. He stared at the ceiling motionless, taking in the whole room, what it looked like when the room was handed over, and what it looks like now. He just bought a bed and a few thin quilts. Now that the weather is hot, I made a mat directly on the bed board. I didn't even buy a mattress because it was more expensive than a bed. He saved all his money. Seeing that it was already July, he felt that it was time to take a gamble on his own destiny. He believed that Li Yuan was different from others. If Li Yuan was no different from others, then he would not have set limits before. Shuttle. He decided to sell the house too. He has paid off his mortgage for 4 years, and now the house price is still strong. With the increase, he can get at least 800,000 in cash. It will take time to go through the process, and it will be good if it can be completed before August. What? Money and capital? Are you sure? Boss, Miss Wen has indeed changed Shugwan capital to paid capital. Li Yuan's heart exploded when he heard Yu Yu's voice confirming again on the phone. Wen Yuxian's operation is really outrageous. Even if the homophone of Don Capital doesn't sound good, why not just change it to another one? Incoming capital? It's really a joke. Can people really believe this kind of name? Can anyone invest in the early stage? Just in July, Wen Yuxian made the official announcement. It is not yet certain when the first product will be released, but the company name has been decided. Li Yuan just returned to his hometown and came to see the progress of his investment. Shopping malls and hospitals are under construction and will be completed this year. There is no telling when they will be officially put into use. As for the village, the front part has been built, with a total of 22 villas. The back is still being built, with about 16 more buildings. I will simply build a frame because it won't be needed for the time being. The road at the entrance of the village is very wide, and a gate is set up 100 meters away. It happens to be stuck at a transfer point at the intersection. There are rivers and ditches on both sides, so ordinary people can't get in. At the same time, Zhou Ranran took a piece of land on the roadside at the entrance of the village and built a large supermarket. It is currently under construction. As for the land in the village, it is contracted by the village collective and will be planned to be turned into greenhouses or breeding areas. There is certainly nothing wrong with being self-sufficient. On July 8, Li Yuan came to Qinghe No. 3 Primary School. He was ready to leave. After all, he had stayed in his hometown for 6 days, and it was not convenient for Zhou Ranran to come out there. There was no point in staying here anymore. When I came to the elementary school, I was specially invited by Cao Ping. He definitely couldn't come here empty-handed. He donated 5 million to the primary school and received a big red flower. I walked around the campus and took photos with the elementary school students. He knew that these children were definitely not willing, but the school leaders organized it, and they couldn't resist. Li Yuan tried his best to save time. He originally thought that the matter was over. Until he saw a little boy walking over. And he knew that little boy. No one in the crowd noticed the existence of a little boy. Even the little boy blended into the group of primary school students and finally ran to Li Yuan's lap. Li Yuan hugged the little boy to prevent him from being knocked down by the crowd. At the same time, he said, "Little guy, who asked you to come here?" The little boy is a little introverted, but his eyes always stay at the school gate. At this time, Li Yuan was very close to the school gate, less than 20 meters away. Your mother asked you to come. After Li Yuan finished speaking, the little boy nodded immediately. At this time, Cao Ping discovered that Li Yuan had a child on his body at some point, and hurriedly said, "Mr. Li, I'm sorry, someone probably didn't pay attention. Give the child to me, and I'll find his parents." Li Yuan said, it's okay, this is my friend's child, and he came here specifically to find me." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 269. Li Yuan couldn't remember the child's name because he only heard Qin Si call him once. Cao Ping didn't know this child before, but now he does. Li Yuan's friend's child? This was important news, information they had not obtained. Li Yuan looked at the little boy with doting eyes, indicating that the relationship was extraordinary. When they arrived at the school gate, Li Yuan's car was already waiting there. He said hello to Cao Ping and his group as a farewell, and then got into the car with the little boy in his arms. As the car drove away, it stopped on a country road 10 minutes later. After a while, a car followed from behind, making the people in other nearby cars very nervous. If it wasn't for the fact that Li Yuan was deliberately waiting for someone, they would definitely have stopped him. Qin Si drove the car next to Li Yuan and got out of the car immediately. When the little boy saw Qin Si, he immediately became lively. He couldn't stay with Li Yuan for a second, so he let Qin Si hold him if he had long arms. Qin Si took the child from Li Yuan and said, "Sorry, Xiao Sheng ran away in the blink of an eye." This excuse is very powerful. It's not like Li Yuan has never seen him before. This little guy is Qin Si's follower, following Qin Si wherever he goes. Lost. Non-existent. Li Yuan couldn't tell what he felt when he saw Qin Si again. Some of the things he had experienced before made him have a lot of sympathy for Qin Si, but today, it was obvious that Qin Si did it on purpose. He didn't want to pretend to be confused anymore, so he said, "My cousin asked Xiao Sheng to look for something, right?" Qin Si nodded, "Well, Xiao Sheng has reached school age. I want him to come to the county to study, but the county won't accept him." Li Yuan glanced at the little boy and said, "He is only 4 years old, right?" There are no school zone restrictions for kindergartens. Qin Si explained seriously, "Xiao Sheng is very sensitive to the surrounding environment, so I wanted to make sure that the classmates around him can stabilize him. If he goes to a private kindergarten, it will definitely take a long time to adapt when he goes to elementary school in the future. There are no separate classes for the third primary school from kindergarten to primary school, so I just want him to go there." Li Yuan said, "Then you don't have to let him run so far and squeeze into the crowd to find me. I deleted your number." Qin Si finally felt a little embarrassed, and her cheeks turned red. Li Yuan was too embarrassed to say anything else. After all, he admitted it. Some things are indeed not that easy, such as a public school kindergarten spot, which itself is worthless. But because of the existence of some systems, for some people who do not meet the conditions, it seems as difficult as climbing a big mountain. Under Qin Si's plan, many people know about the relationship between Xiao Sheng and Li Yuan. Next time, Qin Si only needs to take the photo, or even without taking it. Careful people will remember this, and it will only count for 1 enrollment quota. What? If you delete it, I won't give it to you. Qin Si smiled and said, "Then let me treat you to a meal? You must be hungry too, right? It happens to be not far away." Otherwise, I can't work in vain. You drive in front and I will follow. All right. Qin Si immediately carried Xiao Sheng to the car, and Li Yuan also got in the car. He knew that Qin Si's current situation was average in the early days. Currently, he has published more than 50 videos, and Douyin has attracted more than 2 million fans, and other platforms have more than 2 million fans combined. The company has not yet found a point where it can make a profit, and it is a process of continuous investment. Therefore, Qin Si does not have much salary, currently only 20,000 to 30,000 yuan a month. The car she drives is assigned by the company and does not belong to her. Although he has never been to the place where Qin Si lives, he is not a stranger because he wrote the early scripts. Now Qin Si no longer lives in the village, but in the mountains. The weather in July is very hot, but it is very cool in the mountains. At the entrance to the mountain, the car could not go up, so everyone had to get off. Li Yuan gave the driver a few instructions, and the driver went down to talk to the people behind him. Then, they followed Qin Si up. In about half an hour, Li Yuan saw the filming team on the mountain being driven down. They definitely couldn't let them know that Li Yuan was coming, especially since many of the filming lenses on the mountain had to be dismantled. After confirming that no one was around, Li Yuan got out of the car and went up the mountain. The mountain is not very high, and the road is not difficult to walk in 5 or 6 minutes. Li Yuan saw a bamboo fence yard. After he came in, Qin Si was washing vegetables, while Xiao Sheng was playing with water next to him. If Qin Si hadn't asked him to find Li Yuan, he probably would never have taken the initiative to say hello to Li Yuan in his life. The environment here is very good, with a lot of mosquito repellents placed around. The cleaning was very clean at the end. In an environment with birds singing and flowers fragrant, the video captured was of high quality. Qin Si already has the potential to become a big hit, all he lacks is an opportunity. If Li Yuan is willing to hype up, she can have tens of millions of fans in no time. But it's not cost effective. He speculated with Song Jiajia that Song's shares could bring him at least more than 5 billion in income. Hyping up with Wen Yuxian brought him a lot of popularity, and it is still fermenting, and the rivalry between the two has not yet begun. There is no point in hyping up Qin Si, even if he makes Qin Si a tens of million level internet celebrity. It may be meaningful to Jushin Media, but after all, Jushin Media is just a very small company in Li Yuan's hands. Once he's on the right track, he doesn't need to invest much energy. If there is no way to become a big hit, it can only mean that the company's operational capabilities are not good enough. After a while, Qin Si finished washing the dishes and poured Li Yuan a cup of Osmanthus tea she made herself. She spoke very little, and she never put the title of cousin on the table. She had a faint smile on her face and looked very sweet. After the food was put into the pot, Qin Si came out again and said, "It will probably take more than an hour. The chickens and ducks are old and difficult to stew. Do you want some watermelon? Grown it yourself?" Okay, I watch your videos every day and I'm already hungry." Li Yuan's words are true. Anyway, he will take a look when he has time. After all, Qin Si's girly face is so healing. But no one dares to say whether it is truly cured. Li Yuan became more and more certain that Zhang Chengui's death was planned by Qin Si. She knew there was a problem on Zhang Chengui's side, and deliberately used the child as bait to make Zhang Chengui embark on that crazy road step by step. Even she would rather hurt herself. In that case, everyone was Qin Si's pawn, including herself. But unless Qin Si admits it personally, no one will ever know the truth. Zhang Chengui is already dead. Even if he is not dead, he probably doesn't know that he is involved. It's just a conspiracy. The watermelon is sweet, the peaches are juicy, and the freshly picked croissant is crispy and delicious. Is the little guy's name Zhang Sheng? Li Yuan looked at the little guy eating watermelon and asked Qin Si. His name is Qin Sheng. I changed his name last time. Okay, those things in the past have nothing to do with him. Qin Si nodded. You gave him the chance, otherwise he wouldn't know what he would be like now. Li Yuan didn't want to take the blame and said quickly, it was you who gave him the chance. I couldn't bring him anything except taking care of him. 10 more me can't change his fate. When he grows up, I will let him repay you. Li Yuan watched Qin Si say this seriously, and felt that what he said was obvious, right? She openly admitted that she used herself to arrange admission for her children, so why doesn't she admit it now? Did you really not plan that incident? It seems to be too much of a coincidence. Qin Si was shocked, what's going on? Li Yuan shook his head and said, it's okay. She was pretending, and the more she pretended, the more her guess was true. Zhang Chengui deserved his death, but Qin Si was also terrifying enough. Forcibly plotting people to death. If that matter were placed in the stock market, it would be equivalent to Qin Si not having a penny in his hands and dragging the banker with him to death. It is difficult to achieve this step, at least you must have a deep understanding of human nature. I'm afraid that what Zhang Chengui will say next will be planned by Qin Si, otherwise the script will not be so perfect. Even if Zhang Yuling didn't come forward, the thing would probably happen again. Qin Si couldn't let Zhang Chengui sell her and the child together. I'm going to check out the food. Qin Si stood up. Li Yuan said, you shouldn't poison the food, right? I'll let Xiao Sheng eat first. After Qin Si said this, he left. She must care about her children. If she didn't care, she wouldn't be so desperate. And with her thinking, it would be easy to leave this place. For the sake of her children and revenge, she was willing to stay. Even marrying Zhang Chengui is most likely within her plan. I glanced at the time, and it was already 5 o'clock in the afternoon before I knew it. Li Yuan suddenly realized that Qin Si seemed to have set up another game. Maybe sending children to school is just a bait. He got up and came to the kitchen. He saw Qin Si bending down to lift the lid of the pot, flipping the meat in the pot with a spoon, and then tasting the saltiness. Seeing Li Yuan come in, she said, am I such a vicious woman? Do you even want to harm your savior? No, are you looking for me on purpose today? Is arranging school arrangements for your children just a temporary excuse? Qin Si's eyes widened. You know I'm going to school, although I don't know where you found out about it, because there was no advance notice about it. But you just knew it, and then you took your children and waited at the school gate in advance. Qin Si. Li Yuan continued to ask, then you invited me to have dinner here. The time was chosen very well, around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Qin Si. Your purpose is to get me here? What do you want to do? Qin Si, alas. She sighed and said, you are overthinking it. You have to go this way yourself. Isn't it normal for me to invite you to dinner? And you can refuse. Even your report is outside the yard. You can leave anytime. Also, compared with last time, this time there are more loopholes. Li Yuan also felt it was a bit far-fetched. Qin Si felt that Li Yuan was stunned. How about I take you down the mountain? They posted it upside down, and I'm actually not satisfied with it. Author, Lao He. Chapter 270. It was impossible to go down the mountain. Li Yuan had finally come here and it was impossible for him to leave without eating. Besides, he is not a good person. He trades so many stocks. Behind the scenes, there are not even 100 but 80 people who died because of those stocks. It's like the smile doesn't disappear from one person's face, it just moves to another. So does money. Li Yuan came out, found Qin Sheng, and played with him for a while. Although Qin Sheng is very accommodating and hardly talks, he is still an adult. If you want to pinch your face, can a little kid resist? In fact, he had wanted to pinch his son's face for a long time, but it was too tender and he was afraid that he would not be able to control the force well and cause pain. Qin Sheng's age is the most fun stage, and of course the most naughty stage. If it were any other child, he could turn the family upside down. He is a little less quirky, but his attributes of innocence are not missing at all. He is an ideal child in the world. Although Li Yuan is also very young, he has a dirty heart. Those pure things are inherently attractive to him. After all, what you can't get is always the best. The more you have something, the more you hate it. Except money. When Qin Si came out of the kitchen, her consciousness was in a trance. 10 months have passed since I met Li Yuan in September last year. Li Yuan's image has been changing in her heart. At this time, Li Yuan was using interesting thoughts to guide Qin Sheng to understand the world. Those thoughts were something she couldn't grasp. After all, she hadn't studied since she graduated from junior high school, and her understanding of the world was completely incomparable to Li Yuan's. Li Yuan said lightly, "Cherish what you like, and don't destroy it just because you are angry." From a toy to a loved one. Children may not understand, but Li Yuan implanted an idea into the children's hearts. A 4-year-old child actually knows everything, otherwise he wouldn't be so obedient and run dozens of meters alone to find Li Yuan. Qin Si couldn't tell you any big truths. He just wanted to be obedient and good. Mom loves you. She can only talk about abstract things, but Li Yuan can make many things concrete. Qin Sheng also has a temper, but he is more reserved when facing strangers. She is more patient and has always been tolerant to condoning some of Qin Sheng's willful behaviors. At this moment, she had an illusion: how great would it be if Li Yuan was the father of this child? Being his child is really a blessing. She sat and watched, dragging her chin with her hands, and listened carefully to Li Yuan chatting with Qin Sheng over there. Qin Sheng, who had never spoken before, gradually fell into Li Yuan's language trap and was eager to speak. And as soon as he opened his mouth, Li Yuan won. Qin Si didn't even want to interrupt the scene, but the food was ready. She really wanted to stew in a pot like jumping over the wall, the kind that would take 3 days and 3 nights to get the flavor right. It's time to eat. She set the dishes and chopsticks on the wooden table in the yard and served the food. Li Yuan sat down with Qin Sheng, and now Qin Sheng was able to take the initiative to chat with him. It was getting late, and after the new moon rose, the mottled tree shadows fell on the table. With the refreshing wind, the childish voice, and the heart of a girl, Li Yuan had a very comfortable meal. There aren't many dishes, and there aren't any particularly good ingredients. Qin Si tacitly agreed not to ask Li Yuan when he would go back, but after dinner, Li Yuan held Qin Sheng next to him and played games. Even though Qin Sheng doesn't understand the rules of the game, he often cheats. By the time Qin Si put away the dishes, it was already past 9 o'clock. We had dinner at about 6:40 and finished at 7:30. Washing dishes takes longer than expected. But she put some hot water and brought a wooden bucket. Qin Si took a towel and handed it to Li Yuan and said, "Last time I let you sleep on the roof. This time I'll let you sleep in the back room." "Okay, but just wash it in the yard." Qin Si pointed at Qin Sheng and said, "This is for him to wash. Go to the room. There is a bathroom over there." Qin Sheng likes to swim in the barrel, just like swimming in a supermarket swimming pool. So Qin Si bought a wooden barrel specially. "Oh, then when he finishes washing, remember to send it to my place. I still want to play with him." Qin Si immediately said, "It's getting late. He has to go to bed quickly and play again tomorrow. But I have to leave tomorrow, no matter what." Qin Si was choked for a moment. She wanted to say something, but she opened her mouth as if something was blocking her throat. Half an hour later, she finished bathing Qin Sheng and carried him directly to Li Yuan. Li Yuan also finished taking a shower, turned on the air conditioner, and sat on the bed. Seeing Qin Sheng coming, he immediately picked him up and said, "Leave this guy to me, you go and do your work first." "Well, okay, I'll take a shower too." Li Yuan played a game of picking up stones with Qin Sheng on the bed. He would always do some magic tricks. Even if Qin Sheng didn't follow any rules, he would win in the end. Half an hour has passed. An hour has passed. Qin Sheng's eyelids became heavier and heavier, and he finally fell asleep while playing. Li Yuan did not wait for Qin Si to come back. He opened the door and came to the yard. The moonlight shone down, covering the entire yard with silver. Qin Si sat in the wooden bucket. Every once in a while, he would pick up a ladle, scoop a ladle of water from the bucket next to him, and then pour it down over his head. Her hair clung to her skin under the impact of the water flow. The wooden barrel is not very big, and Qin Si sits in it without much sight angle. Even with his back to Li Yuan, he could vaguely see a pair of small wings through the gap between his arms. Li Yuan had heard someone say that being unable to see your feet when you lower your head, and having little wings on your back, are two of the most valuable things in the world. Although I slept in the back room this time, my treatment didn't change much. Li Yuan spoke. It was the same scene last time at Qin Si's house. Qin Si turned around, put his arm on the edge of the barrel, and said, "Don't you suspect that I killed Zhang Chenggui? Why do you dare to come out so late at night? Your bodyguards have all gone down the mountain." Li Yuan smiled and said, "Bodyguards are just for psychological comfort most of the time. It's better to have destiny in your own hands. Can you control it?" Li Yuan glanced at Qin Si, and then gestured with his hands. "Can't control it?" Qin Si also laughed and said, "I want to keep you and be Xiaosheng's father. In ancient times, it was okay. You could be a female bandit leader and kidnap me. Well, I know that neither Xiaosheng nor I are worthy. Hey, hurry up and go to bed after washing up. Xiaosheng is already asleep at my place. Good night." Li Yuan turned around and entered the back room. Soon, the lights in the back room were turned off. Qin Si stood up from the barrel and then stretched out his legs. Stepping on the bluestone floor left watery footprints, and the silver dyed by the moonlight became thicker. "I will definitely leave tomorrow. Then take it as a gift from me. I actually don't want it that much. I don't understand the rules in the city, but according to our rules in the country, when a guest is leaving, the host has to stuff in the things that the host has given him, even if he doesn't want them." "Huh? It seems like I forced myself on you now, right? Well, then you are the master." A rustling sound came from the back room. In the silent night, it's like the Buddha is whispering. "Oh, it's the happy Buddha. I have nothing but money. I'm worse than you. I don't even have money." The next day, the sun rose 3 poles. Li Yuan was forced to sleep until 10 o'clock before waking up. The reason is that Qin Si can't get up. Even if Qin Sheng wakes up, she won't wake up. It was considered that he was completely consumed with Li Yuan. After all, as long as Li Yuan wakes up first, the situation will be different. But in the end he was defeated by Qin Sheng, who was so hungry that he kept crying. Qin Si had to get up and get him some food. As soon as the result was finished, Li Yuan walked out of the back room and said, "Good morning, I didn't expect to sleep until now. Maybe I was too tired. I fell asleep last night." "How did you sleep?" Qin Si knew that Li Yuan would not admit his guilt after waking up. "Let's have some breakfast before we go." "Good." Li Yuan sat down and Qin Si served him a bowl of porridge. Halfway through eating, he glanced around and said, "It will definitely be beautiful if there is a heavy snowfall in the winter here." "Well, there is one every year, but it's not as good as the north." The snow comes later, around the Chinese New Year. Li Yuan smiled and said, "It's snowing heavily, let's get a stove here and bake some sweet potatoes." It was obviously the hot summer season in July, but Qin Si inexplicably began to look forward to snow. "I hope this year's snow will be more sensible." Half an hour later, she sent Li Yuan down the mountain. She didn't come back to her senses until Li Yuan's car disappeared from sight. She was a little tired holding Qin Sheng. But compared to the emotional depression, this is nothing. Rather than looking forward to the heavy snow, she wanted to look forward to every sunrise and sunset. Li Yuan said he had nothing but money. In fact, her life was not even her own. After all, a gambler like Zhang Chengui would not let her go easily. For a bad gambler, any bad guy around him can be used as a bargaining chip, let alone a person. Li Yuan always thought that she had killed Zhang Chengui. In fact, she had never been in control of her own destiny before that. Otherwise, how could she risk Xiao Sheng's life? Later, when she was stopped while being held hostage by Zhang Chengui, she fought against her fate and stirred up Zhang Chengui's emotions. Zhang Chengui was overacted, collapsed, and refused to talk. That was her only chance to kill Zhang Chengui, otherwise with her fragile strength, she would not be able to resist the mountain of fate. When she arrived at the small courtyard, she asked Qin Sheng to play by himself. "I wanted to prepare some dishes and save them for lunch. But I couldn't lift my arms no matter what." She felt weak all over. What she regretted most was that she deleted Li Yuan's phone number because after being rejected that night, she felt that no one could save her. Her little thoughts really couldn't be hidden from Li Yuan. After all, she learned it from TV series. The phone rang. She thought the filming team was coming up. "I just picked it up and saw it was a text message. Remember to prepare some sweet potatoes, the ones that are particularly sweet when roasted are best.